Hey there everyone, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐥𝐿 here, back again with another video, and welcome to �PW_Skill's new channel, �PW_Skill's Tech, and I hope you're enjoying the content here. There's so much plethora of content here which we are trying to produce for you, and I'm pretty sure that you are absolutely loving it. Here we are trying to actually move into the project direction. So let me first introduce what this video is going to be about. This video is an in-depth walkthrough with the CSS. Now, let me start by saying I am no expert in CSS. So, hey Tesh, if you're not expert, how are you teaching it? It's an attempt to teach, and by this means that I thoroughly enjoy writing Tailwind CSS, which is an framework of CSS where things are much more easier, less code, you enjoy more of the output. But in order to actually truly enjoy Tailwind CSS, you need to know the basics. And I know these are all great videos. Some of them are really good friends of mine because I've been playing around in the YouTube for a while. So what's the problem with those videos? No problem at all. No problem. They are great videos, and this is another such video. The approach that we are following in this video is a little bit different, not too much, but a little bit different. The idea behind the CSS is that you should leave the CSS as early as possible. Hey Tesh, we haven't yet started it. Yes, we'll be starting it very soon in just a few minutes. But what I want to say is that you should be leaving the CSS as quickly as possible. If you really want to become web developer, don't try to do a doctorate in the CSS. Otherwise, you'll be here forever, and there are so many much more exciting things in the web development, especially the programming part, the logical part. So go into them as soon as possible. So again, I would say that it's a fascinating world. You'll be keep on designing amazing buttons, mouse over effects, the cards. There's endless possibilities here. So don't stuck in here forever. Just watch this video. This video is good enough for you, and you'll be able to do pretty much a lot of things. Now, there are a couple of ways how you can actually learn CSS. The first one being just go through syntax by syntax, everything that's there on W3 Schools or MDN. Just read me out. Just give me small demos of everything, and I'll understand it. You'll understand it, but there is no chance that you'll get a confidence in it. And my goal here is to give you those confidence so that you can actually truly enjoy and finish the CSS. My goal is to get you an exit from the CSS as quickly as possible with confidence. So what I realized that it would be so much better that if I introduce you with the basics first, and once the basics are done, I actually move you directly in the project and we talk rest of the things in the project itself. Let me tell you the secret of the industry. Nobody is an expert in CSS and nobody is a master of CSS. Everybody is just trying out things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and everybody just does like that. So you'll be learning a lot more when you'll be actually building the projects or trying to copy some of the design from the other famous website. In that section, you will be learning a lot more than just going through with the basics or the tricks in the CSS, this style or this shortcut in the CSS. Don't go for that. You'll be wasting your own time. So it's my humble request, don't do that. I'll walk you through with a project which we'll try to build, and this was no easy. If it would be Tailwind, it would have been super easy for me, but we'll try to build with core CSS. That's the goal. That's the idea behind it. I prefer Tailwind CSS, but hey, this is a core CSS course. So let me walk you through on my computer screen. Just focus here, tiny bit. So this is what we'll be building up in this one. So this is a pure landing page, and it looks really daunting at first that, oh, there's so much going on in this. But to be honest, there is nothing too much going on in this page. This is an absolute classic basic landing page, but thanks to the designer who actually built these graphics, these images. So there will be a description and there will be a link available there. You can check out that. But if I just give you a breakthrough of this website, that how this website is actually designed and how can we achieve that, you'll see that there is not too much into that once I get through the basics, of course. So notice here, there is a logo here, there's some of the URLs here, and then there is the icon here. So of course, icons we are bringing in from the Font Awesome. The fonts we are bringing in Google Fonts, of course, everything free. But if you look just at the navbar, there are only three categories here. One for the logo, one for the centered element, one for the right element. So if I understand a little bit about the flexbox, I can just do it. So that's your navbar, done. The second portion is actually divided into two parts. The left part is the text, the right part is just the image. So basics are done. So once I add the image in the right part, half of my job is done. Now this here, let your mind tell all the things here. They are again just the text wrapped around in different things. This might be H1 or H2. This might be regular paragraph. Then there are buttons. We can definitely use flexbox here and can just place buttons side by side, just row, direction, row, basic, very basic. We'll understand that part. Then here, if we know how to arrange the two elements, we definitely can arrange three elements. this 300 and this unique is just one element. So we are keeping them top, then copying pasting it, copying pasting it. So that's all it is. So now you can see, now I understand we need to break it down one by one, row by row, and that makes things much more easier. If I go a little bit here, we'll surely understand that how we can get this skewed div which is having some text. But for a moment, if I just skewed it from here to basic onto the ground level, there are just 3 elements inside it. That's it. Just like I have got this element here, now this time they are a little bit skewed. So if I understand the skewed part of it, that's it. Majority of my work is done. Apart from this is very basic, just the text and some paragraph basics. And this is also really nice. A right one and left one are just images with the border. That is it. This one is a little bit neat trick that we have used with the graphics and the combination of the image. These are just buttons, nothing else. Notice here, this is the card, and the image was designed by the designer in such a way that if you place it here, it actually pops a little bit above your card. Yeah, really nice trick by the designer. We are just a developer, we'll be just processing it. This is just text, this is just a paragraph and a button. Told you, not a big deal. Here, just 4 buttons. Once we design this skewed button, we can reuse it here, in the play now, in every single place. So we have to learn how to design this button once only, and that's it. Once we have this, we can design these 4 buttons. And imagine this card was designed as just one card. After that, it was just copying and pasting, and the images got changed. Text got changed, and the button text is still same. So it's not really difficult if you look at this. This one again is a footer, and again everything is looking beautiful because designer gives us those images and the colors. That's why we are enjoying this part. And notice here, this is just again 1 element, 2 element, 3, 4. So it's just a 4 column element that we have got. Once we are done with this, then we have just 1 row which is having these logos, then another row which is having just the copyright. So if we break down this website, it looks beautiful, it looks scary, but if we learn how we can do this after just few of the basics, then I think this would be so much better to actually learn and do all of these things. So I hope now can you understand that things are not really that difficult. So what do you think? Should we get started? We'll definitely come back onto this one just in a few minutes. But first, let me show you what is the portal and everything that we are going to be using. So I'll be using my favorite all-time handy VS Code that we'll be using. And apart from this is my folder structure. So I'll be just creating a new one. Again, don't want to bring this up. Some stuff keeps on popping. Don't you worry. And we'll be saying again, I want to rename this, which will be CSS dash, let's keep it skills. And again, these assets files, these code files will be available to you in the description section or in the comment or somewhere it will be there. So don't you worry. And if you don't find them, let the team know in the comment section. They'll be pretty sure they'll be checking out the comments. So just drag and drop this one, and now we don't need anything. We'll just keep it up here. Let's get the full length of this one and try to see that how the CSS and everything works out. So what we're going to do is we'll be creating a folder here, and we're going to call this one as basics. We won't be going in too much because I know CSS is a really long thing, and 3-hour, 4-hour tutorial is not good enough. It really takes around 12 hours or probably more than that. But I'll give you enough of the basics so that you at least understand what is happening, how is it happening, what all you can do, and the basics around it. So what we're going to do is inside the basics, we'll be first creating a new file, and we'll be calling this one as index.html. No surprises there. So index.html, and our handy I'll be using throughout 𝐒𝐤𝐿 shortcut. So in case you haven't watched or don't know about 𝐒𝐤𝐿, I have a course on that as well, crash course. I have a lot of courses. So go ahead and check it out as well. I'll just do an exclamation and hit the tab. This gives me really basic. We're going to call this one as CSS intro. Makes sense. Now what we're going to do in this one is we're going to first learn about that what are the things, how can I introduce the CSS in this one. Let's go ahead and add an H1, and in this one we'll be adding 8 words of lorem. That's good enough. We'll be right clicking it and opening up with the live server, and hopefully there we go, we have this one. Now let's see that how can I make anything changeable. The very basic of the CSS is that it is divided always in 2 parts. First is your selector, which actually selects on which element you want to perform these styling. So grabbing the element is one of the most important thing. And I always recommend that if you're learning CSS, take a day or 2 or 3, just focus a lot on the selectors. This not only helps you in the CSS, but it actually helps you in the JavaScript world, the DOM manipulation, and a lot of things, which I enjoy a lot more than the CSS. So yes, do spend your couple of days on the selectors as well. The second part is, once you have selected the element, what do you want to do with it? And that is it. That is your CSS. That's majorly it is. Now, there are a lot of tricks and tips and all of the things around it, but let's go with the one by one. The most common method that you're going to see around is going into the head part of it. So obviously there is a head, there is a body. The most basic is, I'll tell you which one has, everything has pros and cons. There is no one right way in the web development. As long as it works, it's fine. But there are pros and cons. The most basic one is to go into the style. There is a start and end tag, and then start writing the CSS like that. I'll just disable my Copilot so that it doesn't give me those weird suggestions. A lot of people, especially at the beginner phase, get freaked out that, hey, how did this know that this one should I apply? That's my AI assistant that helps me to write a lot of code. Anyways, so the basic is, I want to target H1, and this is how you target. You write your element name. There's a lot more into it. There's a lot more that you can add. Right now, the most basic one is add the name of your element. In this case, this is H1. It might be paragraph, image, whatever that is. There are a couple of other ways of targeting it as well. I'll walk you through with that. Let's go with the slowly basics, and then we'll be targeting directly on the project part. And then you write your curly braces. That is it. That's your targeting. There are more ways of targeting. You can target 2-3 elements at the same time. You can target based on their attributes in case you have followed my HTML series. You can also target them based on classes, IDs. There are a lot of ways. I'll walk you through with them, a lot of them, and then we'll be jumping the project. Cool. I hope you enjoy that. Now, what do you want to do that? Now, in here, you write the CSS properties. So how do I know about these CSS properties? The truth is, nobody does. There are only a handful of basic properties which I always know, and rest I always jump onto the Google, try to ask them, this is I want to do. I want to add borders. How can I do it? How I want to add padding. I want to add margin. I want to add maybe shadows. So everything I just usually ask. Eventually, when we'll be building 5-10 websites, then we'll say, I know a lot of properties. I know even a lot of color names and color hex code values as well. It happens with everyone. So eventually, don't get freaked out. That's the basic. So in the H1, the first thing that we are going to do is add a color. Now, definitely we don't want to add a color. We'll be using some different color. One of my favorite one is actually hash, and there is 414141. Yes, I do remember that. That's a grayish color that we can go for it. Now notice here, this is grayish, but it doesn't really, I know this color, I remember this, but it doesn't gives you that, hey, this was changed. So with the VS Code, you can actually just hover onto this icon and it will give you the color palette to choose the colors and even opacity. So let's go ahead and choose a bluish tone color, which is fairly visible, or I'll go with the purple or red. I'll go with the purple. So, okay. And by the way, you can actually click up here and can convert this hex code value, and there are a couple of ways how it accepts the color. So hex code to HSL values, hue, saturation, and lightness, all of that. Then there's HWB, nobody uses that. RGB, a lot of people uses that, but my favorite is hex code values, much easier to remember, but the color is exactly same. You can definitely write here violet, red, and all of that. But the problem is with the UI rendering engine. In case you don't know, every single browser has two types of engine, one which actually renders your HTML and CSS, one that actually renders your JavaScript. We'll talk about the JavaScript part some other day, but when actually your rendering engine paints your web page, then it does a lot of things behind the scene, and the one thing that it does automatically is picking up the colors. If you write the colors like red and orange, the version of Mozilla, the version of Safari have a different choices for the red and their exact thing. There are 1,000 different reds. So hex code values are always much more stable. So that's why we actually use that. Now, if I save this, automatically this is much more of a visible change that, hey, this actually changed the color. Nothing exciting. And also it is bothering a lot in my eyes. So I'll go ahead and target another element, which is body itself. Now, once I have this body element targeted, this time I don't want to change the color because body element doesn't have a color. And another thing is background color. So I can write just the BGC and change the color value. So I'll just go ahead and say, hey, this time let's go 414141, much more grayish, well on my eyes. So I'll just use that. But obviously this pink is not going through with that. So let's try something different here. So we'll go and choose a little bit of the orangish shade, a little sharper one, and we'll go with that. So save this and yeah, little better. We can make it tiny bit better by adding a little bit more properties here. So let's just say this is not what I want. I would actually go ahead and convert this into white. So FFF is for white. You can go Xcode values if the values are repeated. Like I know that the white color is FFF. It's 6 times. 3 times it's repeating, so I can use a shortcut for it. Similarly for the black, if I know that the starting values is the same, end values are also the same, so then you can use shortcut. But the recommended way is go with the 3 and then 6. Did I wrote 6? Yes, I wrote 6. And then in the background color, I'll choose a color which is a little different. So I'll go with the orangish shade that we have been using. So a little orangish, yeah, this one, a little sharper, yeah. So if I save this, now my text is much more visible, but I can see it's looking good, but if it would be center, it would be great. So again, another property that I can learn on the go is text align, and text align is center. There we go. Nice and easy. Text is a center, but the problem is that it's not having any margin. So there is a border of orange and there is a text starting, so it's very nearby. That's where we call it as padding. So padding is something which is inside. So if I go ahead and add a padding of, let's just say 20 pixels. Now padding, why I say inside, because now this padding is actually in between this background color as well as this text. So I like this one. So this is really nice. But you might be wondering why there is a gap between the top corner and this orange bar. Yeah, there's a gap because whenever you actually use CSS, your browser actually injects some CSS for you. Yeah, tough to believe. So a lot of time people don't like it. So in the case of body, you can just go ahead and say, hey, I don't need a margin. So I'll just go ahead and say margin is 0. Once you do this, actually says I'll still apply it. So that actually gives the point that, hey, maybe this body is not actually injecting any margin. Yes, it is not. But hey, Tesh, you just said that sometimes browser actually injects some margin for this. For this, we need to learn another kind of selector, which is known as universal selector. I'll try to introduce you with as many selectors as possible throughout the project, but hey, this is how we learn in the crash courses. So another way of selecting everything on the web page is just use **. *** is a regex, or known as regular expression. What it allows you to select everything on the web page, whether that's HTML, body, CSS, and it just, by using this, you can override the existing things. So if browser is applying any kind of a squeakiness with you, you can just go ahead and change it. So I'll just go ahead and say, hey, everything, I just want you to just flush out the margin. And now I can see there's a change here, visual change that, hey, now there's no side game that are going on and we are able to just resolve this one. So this is really nice. Now, not only that, there are a lot of styling properties as well. Maybe you want to have an underline, so there is a text decoration for that. Nobody remembers everything. Everybody uses these suggestions. So text decoration, dashed, dotted, whichever you like. Yeah, it doesn't really, nobody likes that. So we'll be saying, hey, I don't want dotted, I want an underline here. So I'll be saying underline. So I think, yeah, okay, but not really the best one. So this is one thing that you really need to understand, that how this actually works and all these things. But there's so much more in this background color. So notice here in the body, I have given a background color, but there is a lot more here to discuss. Now let's go ahead and try to bring an image here. So we'll be bringing an image from one of my favorite resources, which is pexels.com. And I'll be using /my name, Hitesh Chaudhary. So my images are pretty popular there. A lot of people uses them. So we'll be bringing an image. And let's just say which one. I think this one looks pretty good. Yeah. Pretty cool image from Japan. I'll right click, make sure you copy the image address, not the image. So we'll try to bring this. So in this landing page, now I want to add an image in the background. Let's try that. Let's try to see that. Now we'll not do any body or something like that. We have already understood that part. So let's remove this. Now I'll target another element, which is HTML. Can I add a background image to this HTML? Yes, you can. That's pretty simple. All you have to do is don't use the background image, just use the background. You can actually go ahead and use it like this as well. And this also converts your entire HTML as black. But now, if we don't use background color, instead of that we use background, there are a lot of properties that I can learn. And I can hover over it, click on the MDN reference and open this up and can understand that, hey, what all this actually gives me. This is how you read the documentation. So there is a background green. If you use that, hey, it does the work. And there is a content. You can use the radial gradient, no repeat, and there's a URL, 50%. There's just so much more that I can learn on here, and you should be learning that. But if I go ahead and use this background, and here's a neat trick that I'll teach you. Go ahead and use a URL. Yes, that's allowed. And in here, you need to give this URL directly. Okay. If I save this, what happens? Let's just see that. All right, so there is an image, but it's okay. What happens if I go ahead and shrink this? Maybe this is the look that you are going for, that hey, this image actually crops up automatically. So as I told you, there is nothing wrong or right here. Maybe you are going for that look. There is nothing wrong in it. So just one piece of code and that's it. But this background actually is, there's a lot of things you can do. For example, if we go ahead back onto the background, you'll see this background is actually a shorthand CSS. Shorthand CSS for what? There's so much more in that. So if you go ahead and read this, this property sets all background properties at once, such as color. So there's the background color, there's a background image, there's a background origin, there is a background size, there's a background repeat mode. So yes, we are actually talking about the shortcut property. And when you actually go ahead and take a full-fledged CSS course, go in depth of it, then obviously you learn more of that, and probably you need an expert for that, way beyond expertise that I have. But I always go through with the documentation, so I know at least that when I'm using background, I am using a shortcut property. So when you use this shortcut property, you can actually go ahead and use some of the things which are shortcut. We just studied about them. For example, I can set a repeat mode, so I can say no repeat. I don't want to repeat. There is a position X and Y that you can actually mention. So I'll just mention a center and center. Again, this is a common shortcut. And then I can go ahead and say fixed, that is for image position. So if I go ahead and say, hey, do all of this, I save this, there is a drastic change here. Okay, so now if I go shrink that, hey this is exactly same. It's giving a little parallax effect, but it is doing exactly like that. This is all because you are missing one more property, which is not settable like this. So this is background size. No suggestions? There we go, background size. And we need to set it up for cover. If I go ahead and set this like this, now you can see the image is traveling with us. Maybe you like this look. Maybe you like the previous look where I can just go ahead and work with that. Now again, every single property that we are talking about is actually a part of it, and you can go ahead and do them one by one. Should we do that? Let's try this. If we can go ahead and do this, let's actually comment out this HTML and try to inject the same property in the body as well. All right, so let's try the body. There we go, selected the body, really basic. Oops, got outside of it. There we go. Now I want to inject these properties one by one. So how can I do this? So first of all, I'll just say background. And in this, instead of choosing the background, I'll choose a background image. All right. Then you have to say, hey, what URL you want to pick. So I'll just pick the URL and just paste my URL. Save this. Notice here, let's go ahead and refresh. And there we go. This is the background of the body. Exactly same effect. Now, if I go ahead and say that, hey, background is okay. Now I want to have a repeating as well. So BG repeat. There are a lot of options into it. No repeat, repeat X. There's so much. But our image is so big, that's why it's not actually showing. Otherwise, it's repeating on the x-axis. You can actually go ahead and hover it, use the MDN reference to check out that, hey, how does it look? So if I go ahead and say background X, this repeats. So this moon is the only image. And you can go ahead and round it, spaced, repeat, no repeat. So this is the original image. When you say repeat X, it repeats it. If I say repeat, then it repeats it everywhere on X and Y axis. So you can choose what you really want to do. And then you can actually say background position. Background position takes two parameters. What should be the X position and Y position? Since our image is pretty big that we're borrowing. Otherwise, you can again go for the background position, look for the MDN reference, that what it actually does for me. So top, then we can go for left, center, 25%, 75%, bottom. There's a lot of fun thing on the MDN to play around. And then you can also give one more property, which is this background size cover. I'll just copy paste this one. Save this. And now if I go back up here and try to scroll this, exactly same effect. So this is what we have right now. Okay, so this is really basic that we can go ahead and do so much more with the CSS. I'm pretty sure that you're enjoying this part as well. Now let me go ahead and walk you through with one more property that is not so easy to understand, but we really need to understand. Okay, so now let's just say, let's go back, and I need to really remove this because this is too much of distraction that we have. You have already understood this part. This is exactly in the HTML as well. So I'll just remove this and go back to my body color, which is background color, and we'll be going with the 3-1. So 3-1-3-1-3-1, which is also a shade of, we'll be using the pound sign. Save this, a little darker shade. Okay, so we have understood the concept here of the padding. One more thing which is going to bother you a little bit is how come the padding and margin. So you'll see the margins as well. Now in order to actually understand this, we need to give this H1 a little bit of the border as well to understand that what is happening, how is it happening. So let's give this H1 a little border. Again, you understand the border property just like this. So we'll be using a border of, let me give me a solid border of 2 pixels and give me a black. So I'll be using 0, 0, 0, not the dollar sign. So now hopefully it gives me a border. Little tough to see. Probably we'll use different color. How about white? Yeah, much easier to see. So let's see that if I don't give this padding 20 pixel, cut this out and save it, this is where the things elements are there. So I hope you can see that this is all sticking up together. From the top it's sticking up, on the bottom it's sticking up. Take a close look on this. This information need to be absorbed. So now if I go ahead and give this a padding, the padding is actually something which is coming just between your element itself. So your element is bubbling up a little. That's how I always imagine this. Whenever you inject padding, I just always say somebody has taken a syringe and have injected air into it. That's how I always remember it. So everything is inside this one, which will be ballooning up. So let's go ahead and try to inject this one. So if I say padding, now notice here one more time that your border is still here and border is wrapping up everything. Now notice here, how does it actually say? I save this. Notice here, everything is ballooning up, but my element itself is not moving. It's ballooning up there at this same position. It doesn't move away from the top. Now let's try to add the margin as well. It's super easy to understand. There we go, margin. And if I go ahead and give it a margin of 20 pixels, so notice here, now my content is moving from its position. So margin is something that which I say is always outside. Who's outside? Border. So margin is something which is going to be outside of your border. Sometimes you don't need to have a border to have a margin, but it's easier to understand that way. So anything that you say margin, it is always going to be applied on the outside of the element. By the term outside means wherever you inject the border, that's the limit of that element on the web page. That's where it is going to be rendering. And any margin gets applied to outside of it. Any padding that you apply gets applied inside the element. That's always the best idea to understand it. Let's zoom it out. So now you can see from every single place we have this margin. If I go ahead and add it a little bit more, exaggerate, so 120 pixels. So from top, left, right, there was nothing in the bottom. Now notice here one more thing which is actually really interesting here. You can right click on this and inspect on this, and there is so much to learn about this. I'll just go ahead and zoom this a little bit so that you can see. So notice here there is a style inside the element. You can actually see the computed properties as well. How does your element is made up of? So right now on your screen, notice here if I go ahead and move this actually changes here. So I hope you can notice that easy part. So my element is actually this much only. So 840 by 37 pixel. Again, you can just move this one everywhere, anywhere that you like it at the bottom. So you can go ahead and move it at the bottom. I usually like it at the right because it's easier for teaching purpose. So I'll just go ahead and move it on to the right part. So that's easier for me. So notice here, and as I said, padding is always inside. So notice here, this is my padding. Hovering actually makes it super easy. Then we have a 2 pixel of border. So that's your border. It's getting highlighted, but it's difficult to see because border 2 pixel, that's it. But the margin is 120 pixel. Yeah, that's really important. The effect is actually much more visible when I actually go ahead and duplicate one more of the H1. If I go ahead and save this, now notice here there is this element which is 120 pixel away from each other. So that's really important. Notice here this is my 120 pixel and this is my 120 pixel. But hey Tesh, there is this interesting thing. If this is highlighting all the 120 pixel, does the bottom element doesn't get 120 pixel as well? That's a great thing. That's a great thing. There is a concept here in the CSS which says that if you have similar situation where the top element is having some of the margin on the bottom side, the bottom element is having some of the margin on the top side, we'll merge it. Yeah, I don't make these CSS rules. Yes, they are available. It's a common known problem. If you'll search for it, the margin collapse problem, I'll show you on the Google actually, that's a real problem. So there is something known as margin collapse in CSS. Yeah, that's a real thing. There's a margin collapse. So you'll see that, hey, margin collapsing. I usually prefer MDN, but there's a margin collapsing occur in three basic cases. You can read about the cases here. Empty blocks, same thing to note. So they are also giving you the exact same, that hey, there is a margin which collapse. So yeah, that's a real thing that happens quite a lot. So this is really great to understand that where the things are going. Now, one more thing in the CSS where we need to pay our attention, which we'll be using quite a lot. Let's go back. Now, again, we have understood this part, so we can go back up here. We can just remove this part and all of that. I don't need this much of the margin here, so I'm okay with just the padding of 20 pixel. But let's go ahead and try to add one more element, and you'll be surprised to know that if I go ahead and say this one is going to be a span. So let's just go ahead and say span. And here I'm going to say text is here in span. Okay, we can directly target the span is here as well. So it's really tiny here. I'll make it big, don't you worry. So I'll target the span. We'll make it really big, so font size, and we'll make it a little bigger. Large, medium, again, it will be rendering differently on WebKit, on the Chromium, so we'll be just using hard-coded values. So 120 pixel is good enough. Too big. We'll go with the 80 pixels, 90 pixels, too big still. We'll go with the 60, final, we'll go with the 60. We can change the color as well, so I can just go ahead and directly target the color. You'll be going with this one. And suggestion, you'll be going with this one. And let's also make it on the center. Text align, center, there we go. All right, so why the CSS property of the text align center is not working? I'll give you the reason, but this is important. Not only that, if I go ahead and say that, hey, the background color of this one also needs to be orange. So if I go ahead and copy this and make this orange, you'll be surprised to see the effect here. Why the H1 was getting all end to end from left to right, but this one is only getting only this much. This is where actually the property of block level element versus inline element comes up. In the CSS, certain elements takes the entire block. The block simply means all the way from the left to the entire right. So they require the entire spacing to render. While on the other hand, there are some inline elements which don't require that much of the spacing. They usually are inline element. So you'll notice a lot of people don't understand the difference between them. They always get confused. They watch hundreds of videos for them. You do not need to do that. The best trick to find out that which element is actually a block level element or which element is inline element is just to give them a background color. If they take the entire space, that's it. They are block level element. And you don't need to do it always, all the time. It's just a few elements that you'll find out that, okay, I know this one is a block level element. So just like that, things actually goes. It's really nice. Let's try with the paragraph as well. So I'll just go ahead and say, hey, paragraph, let's get you a lorem of 10 words maybe. My bad, not question mark. Oh, again, we'll be getting lorem of 9 words. That's it. Now, can I go ahead and get a paragraph background color? So let's go ahead and try and give it a background color. Background color, I'll go with the orange. Not great idea, but I'll go with the orange. So now, again, repeating the fact, if it goes end to end from left to right, it's a block. If it doesn't go there, if it stops where the content ends, it's an inline. So you tell me now in the comment section, which one is paragraph? My content is ending here, but it's going all the way on the here. So yeah, you got it. Paragraph is also a block level element. Now moving on further, there is something more interesting that we can go ahead and enjoy that. It's not always the element which is block level will always be a block element. You have the CSS power. You can change it. Everything is changed. All you have to do is learn about the display property. You can make anything block. You can make anything inline block, or you can make anything as both combination. So I'll just convert this paragraph into inline. There we go. Now paragraph is inline. And also notice it very carefully that now it's in line, so it doesn't need entire space. So wherever there is a space on the above line as well, it actually moves it there. So this is now the actual space which it is using to render the element. Rendering is a big science in the CSS as well, which I am super excited about. And rendering, once you understand this rendering engine, you can do so much good in the React as well, because that's where you understand the virtual DOMs, what the nodes are. There's so much here. All right, so super exciting thing. I'm actually very excited about this part here. Not only that, any element, like for example, this is span, you can actually write properties for that as well. I want to make it this one display as block. You can do this. Now the span is actually a block level element, and the paragraph, which is usually like by default, this is a block level element, is an inline element, but the span is all of that. So again, this is what confuses a lot of people. You don't need to get confused in that. It's absolutely easy. There is nothing too much to be worried about. So I hope you have enjoyed this. This was the part 1 of it. Now obviously we'll be watching in continuation, so I'll take a small water break and we'll catch up on the other side. We'll discuss some more basics of the CSS here. So let's catch up there. Alright, so we are back in the section 2 of the video. So in this one, we'll try to focus a little bit on the selectors part of it. Now we have seen already the basics. It's not really that difficult. Margins, paddings, background colors and all of that. There's definitely more about it which we'll learn in a minute. But right now we want to focus a little bit towards the selection or the selectors. Now there are a lot of cheat sheets available for selectors. There is no harm in going through them. It is a great idea to have a detail in depth about the selectors, or take even a day or two off to just learn about the selectors. They are super amazing, super important, and even not just for CSS purpose, for JavaScript, for your web testing purpose, for selectors. There's so much of the use case for them. And even your DOM manipulation becomes so much easier if you understand the selectors process of it. So we'll be going through with a little bit of it. For this, let's try to create another new file, and we'll be calling this one as selectors. Yeah, selectors.html. Yeah, we'll go with that. And we'll be going just like that, very basic, and a couple of tabs. We'll be going and saying selectors. There we go. All right, so in here, I am actually copying and pasting some of the stuff. So there is a little bit of the comment involved. I'll just go ahead and remove this. So notice here, we are having a couple of use cases here. We'll discuss them one by one of how we are going to do that. So notice here, there's an H1, there's an H2, there's an H3. We have a target as well, which actually refers to PW skills. Of course, what else we are going to targeting? Then again, there is an H1, there is an unordered list, basic HTML element, list items. Again, we have a header. This is a big portion. Inside the header, we have an A tag. Then we have a nav bar, unordered list, and inside this, we have a list item and then an anchor tag. So quite a lot of in-depth nesting here. And also notice here, this header has two portions. Actually, one is A, then we have a nav portion, and then we have a portion. So quite a lot of practice you can do. Then we have this div, and this div also has this image, then a paragraph, then another paragraph. Then we have a div, and inside that we have a paragraph. So what we really want to understand here is the parent-child relationship, parent-sibling relationship. So notice here, this div, this image is a child of this div. The paragraph is also a child of div. This is also a child of div, but this paragraph is actually grandchild. Yeah, it's a nesting. Yeah. And also this paragraph is sibling with this image on line number 39, and this is also a sibling with line number 41, but it's not a sibling with line number 43. There's no sibling relationship there. So this is all the basics that how we want to go through and learn a lot about it. Now, notice here, we'll be actually having a duplicate of this one. Let's have one more. And in this one, we'll be just having an underscore blank, and we'll be redirecting to somewhere else. Maybe, where should I redirect? Google. When nothing comes to mind, Google is the way to do it. And we'll be just saying Google. All right, what a synonym. Always go with the Google. Okay, now let's see and understand a little bit about the selectors here. And I'll also walk you through with one more thing just after once we discuss the basic selectors. Because so far we have been writing all the CSS in here in the head tag itself. And I'm pretty sure some of you already might have written the comment, why we are writing all the CSS in one file? This is bad. You forgot about the tailwind. Yes, there are ways that how you can write the CSS in a separate file. There is an order of execution as there. And you can also write some CSS within the element as well, known as inline CSS. But we can cover only this much in a crash course. Notice here, this is not a 20-hour long course. I'm trying to give you as much as knowledge so that somebody can be really up and running with the CSS as quickly as possible, get the confidence, build some projects on the go, and just be done with the CSS. So remember, there's a use case of it. Now let's try with this. So again, easiest way in order to understand this whole thing is actually go in the style within the same file so that you don't hunt for the CSS when you actually explore the CSS part of it. So I'll go ahead and say style and all of that. Now the most basic selector we have already discussed about it. This actually is a selector which says everything selector or select all. There's a lot of names for it, regex selector. There's a lot of this. The whole idea is I want to select everything. So every default thing which is there in the web page, the browser tries to implement on that. That's what we want to flush. So we'll simply say, you'll see usually the reset CSS is being written on it. Reset CSS means the margin 0, the padding zeros, and a whole lot of things like that. So we'll be going with the margin there, padding 0. So this is usually the case. You can definitely go ahead and add more to it, but this is how you usually see it. Then on top of this, you already have seen that we can target any element. So just with the tag name, so it can be h1, it can be img, it can be a paragraph, it can be a span. So just add the tag name. That's the whole idea. So if I go ahead and say h1 is going to get a background color. So let's go ahead and have a background color. We'll choose the different color, obviously. Let's try move into the bluish territory now, a little darker blue. Yeah, this looks cool. So we'll go with that. Obviously, we'll right click and open it up with the live server. There we go. Both of the h1 gets this color. So again, we will target the background colors as well with the body tag element name. We'll go with the BGC background color with the 313131 with the hash value. So again, it saves my eyes a little bit. So there we go. Now, obviously, I'll comment it out again because I'm not interested in targeting the h1s like that. Another way of common targeting is by adding either a class or the ID. The usual standard practice is that ID is a unique identifier for an element, so it should not repeat. Although if you repeat, it's not going to give you any error. That's just a bad practice, and eventually when you'll be writing code for React, Next.js, a whole lot of things, you will find yourself in deep waters. No good idea, so don't do that. So we'll go with the class. That's a nice one. So what we're going to do is we'll see that how we can actually target the class as well as ID. It's actually super easy. We'll say bg-orange. So obviously that is the class which turns everything into orange. So I'll just say dot, then bg-orange. And then I can go ahead and say, hey, background should be orange. So we'll be probably hard coding the color value of orange. Now only the CSS which is having, oh, my bad. It should be here. BG orange, if I can write that properly, that would be great, so that we can get the background color here. So only where the background color h2 is orange, that is getting selected. If you want to target the idea is really simple. Instead of having a dot means classes, you can use a pound sign. There are a lot of names for it. I call it as pound sign or hash from hashtag of Twitters. Yeah, you get that. So we can go ahead and say, hey, this one is for background green. So we'll just say background color, and I'll hard code the value to green. So yeah, even if it looks great, though great, I don't really care. I'll hard code the value here, green. So that's really basic of how this actually works. And notice here one more thing. There is something when you select anything, there's something known as specificity. Specificity means simply which is higher priority here. So this, you can see h3 has a BG green as well as also BG orange. So if I go ahead and cut this out and save this, both of my lorem ipsum as well as top lorem ipsum gets this orange color. So that's nice of them. But as soon as I introduce this ID, which has the higher catching power, or if this comes up, it will overwrite everything. So now the overwriting value is of ID. So there is a specificity rule as well. Notice here when I hover it, there is always a specificity which is given to you. Selector specificity. If you select this and open this up, you can read more about it, obviously. Some of you might be getting frustrated. Why 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐥𝐿 is always going that, hey, read the documentation, because that's how you become developer. So there is a specificity rule, how this is being calculated, selectors weight calculated. The first one is ID, then the class, then the type, no value. So there's a lot of this here, a lot of details. You can see the scroll bar, there's a lot of them. Examples are there, which one is going to get selected, how the values are calculated. Go read it. That's always a good idea. All right. Now we want to do a little bit different. Now notice here there is this a tag which is having underscore parent, and also there is a tag which is having underscore parent. Then there is a tag which is underscore blank. I want to target the a tag which is having this target equals underscore blank. That means I'm targeting a specific attribute of an element. Now surely you can go ahead and add classes to them. That's always a good idea. But I cannot just go ahead and do a tag. It is going to select everything. So I need to be more specific which a you are selecting for. So in the square brackets, you can actually target the specificity that what are additional properties. And there can be more properties like, for example, hey, the title is here something. So I can go ahead and do this. Yes, there's nothing that's stopping you to do so. In this case, title is not something that is I'm looking for an attribute. I'm looking for a target attribute. So I'll just go ahead and say target. What is inside the target? You can specify the value. You can directly go that, hey, there could be anything inside it. I don't really care. And you can give, hey, I'm just looking for a target. So I'll not go ahead and say, hey, I'm looking for an attribute which is target. I'll say I'm looking for a target. I'm going to give you a value as well. So I'll say underscore blank. I'm looking for this one. And if something is like this, then just go ahead and give it a background color of, I'll go with pink. Yeah, I don't like this pink. We'll go a little sharper. Yeah, I think this one is better. So save this, and if I go back, easily noticeable that the Google is only getting targeted here. Probably we can add more properties to it. So probably you want to add a padding of maybe 10 pixels. Yeah, much easily visible. So I can specifically do that. While on the other hand, if I just go ahead and say, hey, this is going to be like this, then obviously every single target is getting selected, but I can be more specific. I can be more specific like this as well. So notice here one more thing. It's probably going to surprise you. I can cut this out, save this. Now everything which has a target will get selected. So in order to show you, if I go ahead and remove this target, obviously that's not getting selected. So very basic, very basic. I hope you understand this part, really basic. Now here's an interesting selector, really nice one. So I'll just go ahead and say that, hey, now I want to select H1, comma, H2, comma, H3. And I want to go ahead and apply something, probably a background color. So which background color? We'll go a little bit maroonish side. So just like this. So save this. Now my H1, H2, H3, all of them are getting targeted. So that's the one. And this is a selector which says, I want to select H1, I want to select H2 also, I want to select H3 as well. So comma means I want to select all of them and I want to apply the same property to all of them. But there is also one more interesting one here. So notice here, our UL also has this li inside it. So what I can do is, I can go ahead and target a li directly. So just I'll go ahead and say, hey, background color. We'll choose a different color this time, obviously. So let's just keep it white. So notice here, all of the LIs get selected. So home. So there's a lot of LIs that get selected. So home is something where we actually should talk a little. So if you notice here, this 4 is getting selected. That's important. And this 1, 2, 3 is also getting highlighted here. So notice here, this 1, 2, 3 is getting selected. 4 is also getting selected. Maybe the goal is that only the LI should be getting highlighted who are inside the UL. In that case, what you do is you write that, hey, there is a UL and inside this there is a LI that I want to highlight as white. Now notice here, the home is also getting highlighted. So probably home is also there. So let's go ahead and expand this and there we go. So home is also inside the UL. That's why it's getting highlighted. So notice here everything, but this 4 is not getting highlighted. The 4 is unhighlighted. So there's a difference here. A lot of people make mistake that, hey, this comma means go inside it. No, comma means I'll select H1. I'll also select H2. I'll also select H3. So that there is an end specificity. Here there is a thing that you're saying that, hey, go into the UL and inside that there is a child known as li. So select all of these childs and I'll go with that. Now there is a little bit more towards it. So you can go ahead and do a specificity rules for a lot of them. So you can say that, hey, there is a header and inside this header there is an A tag as well. So you can select that. You can go select siblings and all of that. So I'll highly recommend you to learn more about them. I'll just give it to you because that's all what we can do. So you can go ahead and target the A tag inside this. I'm not targeting all the A tags. I'm targeting just only this one. So I'll just go ahead and use a background color. Let's choose a bluish tone so that you can easily find it out. So we'll choose something like this and save this. Now notice here there is a lot of A tags. Not all of them are getting selected. Somebody who is inside the header. So notice here, this one is also Google is inside the header. This one is also inside the header. And this one is also inside the header. So logo, Google and Bing. But what we see is Google is getting selected, Bing is getting selected, but this logo is not getting selected. The logo is still just as it is. So it just simply says that, hey, I'll be selecting all the childs of it, and maybe you want to read more about it. You can go ahead and open this. That, hey, this is the selector specificity. I can read about it, but there's a lot of them. Now, similar to this, you can read and go more for it. Maybe you want to select the childs. Maybe you want to select siblings. There's a lot of it. One interesting thing, cool thing I'll show you. There's an image, then I'll use a plus sign and I'll use a paragraph and I'll say, hey, let's choose a background color and we're going to go with classic green. So there we go. What you'll notice here is there's a lot of paragraphs, but if I go ahead and get here, notice here there is this image And after this, there is a paragraph which says change me, and this paragraph that says change me 3, there is a change me 2 as well. So which one is going to get selected here? If I go back and notice here, only the first one is getting selected. So there is this plus thing also known as, which actually selects only the sibling, but it selects the first sibling only. There's a lot more. There's a lot more that we can go. That's why I say to people that, hey, the more time that you will be spending with the selectors, the better you will be. It's not something you can learn with just one video, one watch time. It actually takes a couple of iterations, a little bit more practice, a little bit more use case scenarios as well. And I can say if you spend even a 1 week with that, there is no harm with that. There is so much more into this one that you can go ahead and learn about it. All right. So let me actually create one more file and show you some more things on the selectors, since we are on the part of exploring them a little bit. So I'll right click, new file, and I'll just say selectors, not like that, selector_2.html. And I'll just go ahead and get the basics done here. Now, not only that, there is so much more that you can learn about it. So I'll just go ahead and bring some of the prepared HTML for you. So there's nothing much in here, the prepared HTML. So there is an H1, some input boxes, H1, some more input boxes. There's a div, couple of div inside it, then H1, then H2, then a paragraph and all of that. So this is basic. This is just to tell you that, hey, there is an impact. The whole idea is that to give you more about the selectors as well. So notice here, what we can do is we can actually manipulate the states of the element as well. What do you mean by state? Yeah, that's interesting. Let's save this, right click and open up with the live server to see that. So this is really basic web page that we have. Now what I want to do is I want to change this H1, but not all the time. If I go ahead and move my text here, I know this is too bright. I'll just fix this one first. I get that. Style, and we'll be saying, hey, body, that needs to be changed. So we'll just say background color, 212121, of course, with a hashtag. It's a little darker one again. We'll be changing the color as well. And we'll be Alice blue is good enough. Save this. Yeah, we'll be happy with that. So obviously I can go ahead in this style and change the color of H1's background really easy. That's pretty easy for me. I'll just go ahead and say background color. Let's go with the orange. Save this. There we go. All the H1s are there. But what I really want is now I want to change the state of it. The way how you change the state of it is by a little bit more advanced selector, which serves with either the 2 colons or with the 1 colon. So that's how we do it. So first one is going to be a hover state. So when I hover it, then the state should change to background orange. So this is how basics of it. And since this is a block level element, I don't need to hover exactly there. Anywhere which this element is getting rendered, I can just put up my cursor there. And as soon as my cursor is there, that's a hovering effect and it changes the color. So there's so much more that you can do with the subtle zoom in, subtle zoom out, tilting it, making it black and white, making it blur, unblur. There is so much more to it. Now there's a lot of things like that. This is not just like this. H1 has this one. So there's a lot of buttons here as well. Button have this hover effect as well. You can go ahead and make it bigger, make the background color. So text size, transform. There's a lot of properties here. So we'll just go with the background color. We'll go with the color of pound and then maybe 3D, 3D, 3D. Again, I just remember a lot of shades of green. So this is hover effect on the button. Not a great one. We should be going with the white. White's default. So we'll go with the red. And we'll also get some padding onto this one. So we'll say padding of 10 pixels. Yeah, so if I hover over this, yeah, very bad effect. But you get the idea how this is being done. Basics of it. Not only that, there are a lot of such things and effects like this. So for example, input has a lot of them. So input has this, as soon as you put up a colon, it will suggest you that this after, before, content, queue. There's no shortage of it. For example, there is this disabled. So if it is disabled or default, so disabled, you want to do certain things. There's a lot of things. Notice here, there is a couple of divs as well. So with the divs, you can actually select that what you really want to say. So what I want to do is, let's just say there is a div and I don't want to select the div. I want to select some elements inside the div. So select the first child. And there's a lot of fun you can do with that. So first child will get a background color of greenish. We'll select a cool green. So we'll go with the greenish, a little darker. I think that's a cool green. So select that. Now notice here, only the one gets selected. If you don't want the first child, maybe you want to select the last child. So only the last one, the 3 gets the highlighted. Or you can use some formula as well if you are good in maths. You can go ahead and use the nth child, and then you can design, I want to have a 2n of it that's being calculated, 2n the second element, every second element. So n is being replaced by 1, 2, and 3. So all those multiples, n gets replaced with the integer values. So there's a lot of fun that you can do. Not only that, you can actually do some of the cool styling as well. For example, what I'll do here is I'll just say that show you some cool pseudo element as well. So with the h1, I'll say 2 colons, and then I can use some of the pseudo elements known as after and before. So I'll just select the after one. After this, I'll just write some content. There's a lot of fun you can do with that. Add images, background images. There's so much fun. I'll just add a content here. The content is going to be saying after, just like in the caps, with an exclamation, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and use a color as well, which will be this. So there we go. Now notice here, every single h1 gets this after. So that's really cool. A lot of people get adds images there, some of the squares, circles. There's a lot of things you can do with this. Similarly, just like there's after, there is a before as well. So every single h1 gets this after here. So there's an alert on the h1. There's just so much of the fun that you can do. Not only that, there is a paragraph as well. So you can go ahead and change some of the paragraph fun stuff as well. So paragraph, colon, colon, and then you can choose the first letter of the paragraph and make its background color something different. So maybe a background color of not this one, but suggestion, we'll use the nasty red again, and we'll change the font size as well. So font size maybe 20 pixels, too big, but yeah, we'll get that. So notice here, why the 20 pixel is not getting applied. The text is getting applied. So a little refresh. I don't know why that's not applying. That's how it happens. But you can see this is getting applied here. I'll probably need to check that why this is not getting applied. It usually does. Let's exaggerate it, 200 pixels. It is getting applied, but the 20 pixel was not getting, somehow it was not rendering. So we can see a lot of magazines actually does that. That actually looks cool. But again, 200 pixels is too big, probably 100 pixels. Yeah, that's better. So magazine kind of effect, that looks really cool. And maybe you want to add a little padding. So let's just add a padding of 3 pixels, very light. 3 is not good. 8 pixels, yeah, that's decent. So there's a lot of things that you can achieve with that. If you really understand the selectors, your life would be so much easier. There are only a handful of the things on the CSS where you should be focusing more. All the things majorly I have told you, but if you understand a little bit more on the positioning side as well, you will actually be much more happier. And there is a little bit in the grid as well. There is a little bit on the flexbox side as well. I personally recommend go ahead and take a look on the grid or a grid cheat sheet. Usually grid requires a course in itself, maybe 5 or 6, 10 videos or something like that to truly understand. There's a lot of code files also that needs to be prepared in advance. But what I recommend is that in case you are a little hurry, then one of the classic resource to understand grid, which actually helps you a lot in the positioning is if I go ahead and search for grid cheat sheet. There is only one resource which I go for it, which is CSS trick. Not the first one. I always go with the CSS tricks, especially for this one. Everything that you want to learn or you want to master in the CSS grid is actually mentioned nicely here with examples, with what will happen, how the elements will lay out and all of this. This is so nice for the grid. I'm not a grid fan. I actually go everything with the flexbox. So I'll just say, hey, flex cheat sheet. Again, I go with the CSS. This is my personal favorite. Every single course that I've taught, I've always recommended this. This is something really, I'm not associated with them anyhow, but yeah, I enjoy them. So how the container will laid out, how the properties will actually say, how the flex wrap will work, how the content will be there. So if you notice here, the space between is the look that we are looking up for in the landing page. So this is one element here, one element here, one element here. So they are all scattered around. So all we have to do is flexbox and then we'll say flex space between. So elements are just scattered there. Then from the width of the bar, we can actually have a margin on left and right. We can shrink it. So this actually helps you to do a lot of things. We can even use the space evenly to achieve this effect. There is so much. So my recommendation is go for it. And I think the basics are over. We can only afford this much of the time to give in the specific CSS talks and all of that. I think now we should be moving into the project side. That would be so much more helpful for us. So let's go ahead and now let's go ahead and catch up into the project section of it. Hey there everyone, welcome back to the almost a finalish section of this entire long video. We now have the basics, we now have the mid portion where we focused a little bit on the selectors as well. There is obviously a lot more to learn and understand, but I think this is good enough to get started. Now the only thing that's remaining is deal up with the projects. Never ever go with the projects with the mindset that I'll create the whole page in once. That's always a bad idea. Always go in a certain way where you simply think that I want to build this portion of the website, and always think it in the row perspective, not in the column perspective. You don't want to go like this. You always go in the which row I'm targeting first. Row 1, row 2, row 3, something like that. That's always a good idea. And there is a lot of role of the designer as well in the production grade web development, where designer gives you the fonts, the good images and all of that. But still there is a lot that you can do with other images, free resources and all of that. But in this one, I'll give you some of the starter code as well, which will be available probably in the description section, or just let the comment section know that, hey, we need that. PW is really always kind enough to provide students as good material as possible. So I'm pretty sure this will be available to you as well. So I have created this project one, and inside this there's assets which are given to us by designer. Hey designer, thank you so much. And there's this logos here. You can see there's the logos, cannons and whatnot. So all these are given to us with the names that they have given us. So we'll be using this one directly. There's a logo as well. There's a header cover image as well. Microsoft logo. There's a lot. There's a lot given to us. We'll not go too much in depth of it, but we have this and we are happy with this. Apart from this, I'll be creating a new file, and this file is going to be simple index.html, of course. So there we go. We can now minimize this asset because it's easier to actually see it. We'll have this index, and obviously we have created this app. That's why we are actually recording them. So it's not like the first time we are building it. If I go up here, notice here, this is what we'll be having, and we'll try to keep a reference here so that we can see what we are actually building, which area we are targeting. It's much more easier for you to understand as well. So I'll come back here. I will give an exclamatory sign, and that's it. That's our boilerplate code. In the document, you can just go ahead and say, I'll just add my Hitesh, and we'll be saying landing page project. That's nice. You just add your name and make sure you click up a photo of this one and post it on LinkedIn. You're learning something, so that's a great thing. All right. Not only that, we also have some of the boilerplate code for you for just the basic purpose. You don't need to worry about that. We'll just go ahead and copy it from my notes and bring it up here. There is nothing too much in here. We are just bringing in some fonts which we'll be using, the pre-connect font and couple of versions. In case you don't know how to bring this font, it's actually super easy. You can just go on to Google and ask it, hey Google, I want font.google, and there we go. Just click on it and select your favorite font, whichever is the one that you are enjoying. Maybe you like this one, Interfont, which is pretty popular in the mobile development arena as well. Just click on it, and then you can choose which version you want. Maybe you want the medium version 500, just select it. And then here there are a couple of versions or a couple of ways how you can import it. You can click on import and directly import it in the style sheet, which is what we are doing, or you can just add a link and just add it into the HTML part. And by the way, sorry, we are not importing in the CSS. We are actually importing them into the HTML portion of it. So this one is a link for HTML, just like you add CSS, that's it. And import is directly importing on the CSS, no right or wrong way. This is how things are. So yeah, that's what we are doing. So there we go, very basic. So there we go. All right, so moving up here onto our VS Code. So we have also included the the font awesome icons as well, so that we can actually have some of the font icons as well. Again, this is free resource. You will find that minified version of it, but that's it. Now in this case, we'll be keeping our CSS a little bit separate. So we'll be saying link CSS, hit the tab key. It actually gives you style.css. The file is not available right now. So we'll just right click and create a new file, and we'll be saying style.css. That's it. That is all it takes to actually just add an external CSS. So far we have been writing everything in the head portion itself. But now is the time that we go ahead and change it just like this. So that's it. One of the best way of actually checking it is to have the body element being selected just like this. And once the body is selected, go ahead and give it any sharp color of the background, maybe an orange or maybe orange red, which one you like. This is too sharp. But we can go in the HTML back, hit right click and open it up with the live server, and there we go. Not good, not good. Orange is not good. This probably orange is a far more better than this one, but we can see that this is there. Bit short, but we can see our CSS file is linked. Now let's go ahead and deal up with the things one by one. I'll just save this, go back. And the first portion that we'll be talking about is the header portion of it. And inside the header portion, we just have the nav bar, which we want to have this one. So this is what we have. And we'll be having the main section into this header as well. And again, it's totally up to you that where you want to actually close the header. It's totally up to you. The way we have designed it is really simple. We have kept this nav bar in the header, this whole portion in the header as well, and this tiltish bar as well in the head portion as well. This is not compulsory. This is your HTML arrangement. If you want to just keep the nav bar here in the, that's up to you. If you want to keep just this one here, that's totally up to you. So let's go back onto the VS Code and see that how we're going to do this. First, in the way we have designed it in the HTML, we'll write just enough HTML so that we can see how the looks and everything are going on. So we'll be just first getting the header portion of it. So there we go, we have the header. And inside the header, first we are worried about just the nav bar itself. The way we are using is the modern CSS and the HTML as well. So we'll be just having the nav. This nav will have an ID, so I'll use the pound sign for it and I'll be saying nav bar. This will make my life a little bit easier to target whenever I want. Now, as I can see, this nav bar has three portions of it, this logo-ish portion, this center-ish portion, and the right portion of it. So we obviously need three portions of the things to be divided in that. That's how we'll be doing. So the first portion is going to be a simple div that will have an ID. And again, these IDs are something we have already designed. I'm just going to give you a walkthrough of it. So logo dash, and don't just think that I'm just doing it perfect in the first go. No, we practiced it and we built it and we got some errors. And now I'm giving you a walkthrough that how we actually took down this project. So we'll be having a container just like this. So that's it. Inside this, we'll be having an image. Now this image is going to have a source as well. So let's just have the image with the source. And the source will be coming up from the assets and we are using the logo.png. That's what we have. In the alt as well, we'll be writing logo. So maybe in case we got an wrong or something like that. We are not worried about the source set and all of that. That's part of some time else. So we'll just go with that. And also we'll be having an h2, which will be saying board. So just like this. So again, this is exactly same as we have board. So just like that, maybe a lowercase b for the board. That's how it is. So that's one portion of it. And as I told you, we'll be using a little bit of the flexbox. So that's one portion of it. The second portion is all the UL elements that we have. So that's the second portion of it. So we'll just minimize this first portion, second portion. UL, which will be having an ID and we'll be having a nav dash items. And inside this, we'll be having an li. So we'll be having 5 of them. So multiplied by 5. There we go. And this one will be having products. I think that's all caps. So we'll be going with the caps. Although we can do it with the CSS as well. But we'll be taking it down just like this. So products, then we'll be having app and games, not have games, games. And what else that we have? Features. Okay, what else we have? Support and about. All right. Support and about. All right, so that's my second portion of this, which we'll be targeting through this. And the last but not the least is the right portion. And as you remember, the right portion is nothing, it's just a one icon that we are bringing in from the font icon itself. So this will be a div, which will be having a class. So use the dot, which will be having a class of dot right. And then inside this, we'll be just adding a simple I tag. I tag is almost like the span tag. So we'll be having this one. And this one will be having saying solid FA bag shopping. So this gives us this icon. So if I go up here now, notice here, this is how it looks like, the icons, the board, these all things. And converting this into this automatically will give you a lot of confidence here already. So let's go ahead and try this. Again, trying is super easy for this one. Let's go into the style. We know that everything is now getting connected. So first, let's take down the body element. We want to flush out the margins and paddings. So margin 0. And then we will be having padding 0 as well. the background color that was given to us by designer. So I'll not waste your time. I'll be just copying and pasting from the designer sheet, which is usually Figma. There are a lot of tools about it. Figma is popular these days, so it was given to us there. So we are just using that. Now on top of that, we are also using a font family as well. So font family, it's definitely not serif. It's actually a lot of font that we actually brought in. In case you want to use something different, go ahead and use different fonts. This is the 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐥𝐿𝐻 which we are using. So this is the 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐥𝐿𝐻. This is the one, the link which is actually getting. Again, if you wish something else, feel free to just use. There is nothing wrong, nothing right in this one. And let's also give some backup font. In case the 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐥 doesn't load up, then simply we go ahead and give it sans, no suggestion, sans serif. The reason we give this one or the serif font is because that's a default installed on the servers, on the computers as well. And this is the way how we write it. Really, really simple. And again, we'll be also giving a border boxing as well. So border boxing, no, nobody's giving it. This is to actually defining that how you want your box sizing. That's an important concept. It actually specifies the behavior of how the width and height are going to be calculated. There are a couple of more references as well. There is a content box, there is a border box as well. You can read more about them in the MDN reference docs. This is a nice article about the MDN. They actually shows you that, hey, this is going to be content boxing. So everything will be inside like this. There is a box sizing as well, which keeps it outside. There is a border box as well, which keeps it inside with the border. So that's the whole idea. If I click on this, notice here my border and even the content is going out when I say content box. The border is not there, but here I can just keep border and everything inside. So I'll be choosing this one as border box. So box dash sizing, and I'll be choosing the border box. So that's it. Now if I go back here, this is what this has converted it already. Now on top of this, we'll be actually going ahead and targeting the header as well. So this is my first header. Right now there is nothing to write inside the header because I have everything that I can target using the nav and everything, so I'll keep it safe. But maybe later on I'll work with that, so I'll just keep it up here. In case I don't have it, I'll just come back and I'll remove this, but I'll keep it up here. Then I can target an ID, which is navbar. Remember, this was an ID, so I'll just go with that. So this is my top navbar, the top container. For this, we'll be saying margin should be 0 and auto. So by the way, the auto is saying that, hey, the margin 0 and auto means from top and bottom I'm saying 0, and auto means, hey, however the width is, just give it that margin. So it always there. The width will be restricting it down because in this, when I see here, it's not going all the way on the left and right. So something is restricting it. That's the width. So we'll be going with the 80% of it. If you don't like it, 85, 79, you can go ahead and test it around. And then we'll be deciding the height. Now, there are a lot of ways how you can design these height as well. You can go ahead and say, hey, I want 20 pixels of it. So this element will get a 20 pixel of height, just like this. Notice here, everything is now trying to shrink into 20 pixel, although they are not, but we can do this. There is another unit that we can use, which is in the percentage, so known as 10VH. So whatever your viewport height is, how long the page is on the viewport, that is your screen, you can use 10% of it. So this is how the basics of it. Now on top of this, we'll be using one of my favorite property, which is display. And display will be not using the inline, the box, anything like that, block, inline, we'll be not using it. We'll be using something cool, which is flex. I love flex. The moment I do the flex, there we go. Everything is already looking the way we want it to look. So board is here. Definitely this is on the top, but notice here, this is very close to it here. So board is here, center and all of this. So at least they are on the rows. That's what my goal is. And then I can simply go ahead and add two properties as well. The first one is justify content. So I'll keep it center. If you'll read the cheat sheet, you'll find out the justify content always works on the main axis. The main axis is on the left to right. So center everything on the main axis from left to right, keep everything center. Another axis is align item, which is on the top to bottom. So keep everything center on the vertical scale as well. So that's really, really basic. And the next one we'll be going is align items center. So everything that starts from justify is on the main axis. Everything that starts on the top to bottom axis or the other axis is this one. So notice here, we'll be just keeping it center and we'll be setting it. And let's also add a color so that we can see how this is actually working. So we'll be going with the white. So I'll be just saying hash and F, and there we go. Save this. Now notice here, right now, everything is at the center. And the way they are only reaching up this position because That's the only height they have. Notice here, we are saying that, hey, you will be getting a height of 10 VH. If I go ahead and give it 100 VH, that is 100% of the viewport, I can bring them up center horizontally and vertically. So yes, there is a meme around that it's not easy to horizontally and vertically center a div, but if you know this, viewport height, justify content, align item, and flex box, you can do it pretty easily. So we are not interested in that. We'll just go back into the 10% of VH. That's exactly what we want. But notice here, justify content center is bringing everything on the center. And we just studied a moment ago that there are other properties here which are available to me. So I can say flex end. What does it do? Oh, it brings everything at the very end of it. So I'm sure there is a flex start as well. So I can go ahead and say flex start. It moves everything start. And in case you remember, we studied about between as well. So space between. Yeah, that's great. But we can also go ahead and say space around as well, in case you wish that there was one property space around. And this adds a little bit more spacing around. I don't want that, so I'll be just going with the space between. But yeah, there's a lot of options around it here. Now next up is, if I go up here and notice here there's a logo container here as well. So let's copy this one and try to address the logo container first. We'll be going one by one, left to right. So logo container first, obviously they need to be logo on the left, board on the side. So display flex, that's it, it's gonna do it. And then we'll be taking this one, and then this is okay. Let's go ahead and work on with this one. So pound sign and the logo container just like that. All I have to do is say display flex, and that's it. It's going to do majority of my work. And on top of this, I can also say that, hey, align items is going to be on center, and that's it. Surely I can go ahead and target a little bit more if there would be something more. So I can give more margins here. In case you wish, you can go ahead and provide a gap as well. There's a property known as gap, and I can provide a gap of 2 pixels. They'll get gap, or I can just target something like this. So I can target inside this div, there is this H2. So I can just target it a little bit more. So just showing you, I'll not do it because that's not the part of the plan. But I can go ahead and say, hey, this is something. And inside this, there is an H2, and I can go ahead and say margin on the left side, there will be 10 pixel. I'm just trying to exaggerate it. So there we go, 10 pixel, we get that. So there is a spacing here, and obviously you can exaggerate a little bit more. So there is a 100 pixel margin now. I won't be doing it, but in case this is bothering you, you can go ahead and do that. Not to me, because this is how the designer actually gave it to me. What I really want is, I don't want to target this, but I want to target the image inside it. All right. So the image is right now whatever the default designer has given me, but I would really like to target this. So I'll just say inside this, there is an image. I'll be targeting that. And inside this image, let's give it a width as well. So width will be getting 25 pixels, so that in case some logo comes up which is not of the perfect height, it still doesn't really break the things. We tested it out. Using these values, usually the height and width, these are given to you by the designers that, hey, on the bigger screen, we want this pixel. On the smaller screen, we want this pixels, and these are given to you via the Figma files, and that's known as the process of designers handoff, and they give you all such details, or you can ask them. Now let's come back on to the next portion of it, which is the nav items. Again, nav items is super simple. Let me just show you how that actually works. So I'll just go back here and I'll say, hey, there is this nav items. And again, the first thing that we'll be doing is flex. So you get the idea. Display flex, that's it. It does the job. Obviously, that's not the whole idea. So we need to give a width as well. Let's go ahead and give it a 500 pixel. Again, during the hands-off process, this was given to me. I also don't want these dots. So I'll be saying, hey, the list title or the list style is actually none. So there we go. Already looking a lot better, but we need to add a little bit more property. First, we'll be saying align items. A center is good enough. And we need to have a justify content as well. And we'll be saying space between. The reason for saying space between, because now I have given it a fixed width as well. So it will be all arranged like this. That's exactly what we are doing. There are a lot more ways of it. You can add margins, you can add paddings and all of that. There is one more thing which designer actually gave us that, hey, introduce the font weight as well. We can go ahead and add a normal, or we can go ahead and say that, hey, we want something like bold. That's also great. But since we have introduced more for weight values here, notice here we have different weight values 100, 300, 400, 700, 900. It's better to actually choose something between them. So I'll be saying instead of that, we'll be choosing 300. Probably it might not impact much, or we can just go ahead 700 if we got that. Yeah. But again, we have to look what the designer has actually given. We cannot use our own brain in this case. So we can just say 300. And one more thing, notice here, this is how the cursor is looking like on the actual one. This is how it looks like in our case. So we need to modify the cursor as well. So as soon as somebody comes up on the list items inside this, so we'll be just saying that, hey, all the nav items and the list items, so both properties should be there. Then I want the cursor to be pointer. So I'll just say cursor pointer, and that's it. Now ours is also pointing. So I told you, it's actually super easy. This one I'm not worried because this is exactly what is being left. So in our case also this is exactly same. Alright, so now I hope this gives you a little bit confidence that yeah, it was not that difficult. If we choose it one by one, we can actually go ahead and do this. So not really that bad. Okay, now let's go ahead and work on something really interesting. So that would be something cool and you'll be enjoying it a lot more. Okay, so let's go back up into the code part. Next section. So we'll be wrapping this up so this navbar can go close so that it's easier. We'll still keep it inside the header because that's how we planned it up. Now we'll be planning up the main header. So we'll be saying main header, just like this, escape comment. I'll be adding a comment here. So we'll be saying navbar is here and we'll comment it out so that later on when you get this, you should be getting the clean code. All right. So next up, we already have seen that this portion is actually divided into two parts, this whole thing and this whole image. Let's do that. Nothing else is in my mind. I just want to have this. So this div is going to have an ID. Again, you can go with the classes as well. No problem there, but I'll go with the ID. So this one is going to be saying main dash header. That's it. And this main header will be divided into two portions of it. The first part will be saying div dot left. Again, you can go with the creative name as well. And another one is going to be the right portion of it. That's it. Now, the right portion is actually easier. So we'll be taking it down first because it has just this image. Once you have this image, we'll be saying, hey, go into the assets and there is a header image, this one. And that's it. In the alt tag, we'll be saying header image. So I hope this actually makes a lot more sense to you. Now, coming up onto the left part, that is a little tricky because we have a big text, we have a smaller text, two buttons, there's gibberish as well, whatever that is. Okay, let's take it down one by one. So the first thing that we have is, let's go up here and let's create a div with the class of big text. That's what we used, but you can feel free to just go with something else. Inside the big text, we are actually having a span, and this span is saying let your, because that's how this is, let your, then we have mind explore, then we have new world, so we are going with a lot. And then what we are doing is we are adding a br tag. So let's go ahead and br for a new line, obviously. And we'll be keeping it self-closing just for the sake, nothing much. And then we are having a span tag and we are saying mind, just like this. So notice here, this is mind, and then explore is actually in different colors. So we'll be creating a span. Just because I'm writing in a new line doesn't mean it will come in the new line. It will be in the same line, but I will be giving it a special class. So we'll be giving it a class of gradient text. Again, not like that. Gradient text. All right. And we'll be saying explore, not with a double R. So there we go. So this is how it looks like. And then once this span actually ends up, then we'll be creating a new line. That's how we usually go with that. So there we go. And then we have this new world. So we can write that in all one span and we can say new world. There is exclamation. Nope. They don't like exclamation. All right. So this is the one portion of it. This is the big text portion of it. We'll be definitely styling it. It would be fun. But in the paragraph section, I'm not going to write that. I'll actually bring it directly from the website itself. So yes, I went into it, copied in all of this and pasted it. So all of this, again, we could have easily gone with the lorem ipsum, but hey, when we have the text, we'll go with the text. So that's one portion of it. Now, again, as you can see, these buttons, obviously, you know this, the drill, we can do a simple display flex and they will be all aligned in the row. So yes, I'll use the cheat sheet of this one. So just after the paragraph, let's use a div that says buttons, and there we go. And then we can simply go ahead and add 2 buttons. You can definitely use buttons, but these are not just the buttons, they are actually the divs. Styling the buttons is a little difficult, but styling the divs is much more easier. So we'll be using a div and we'll be calling this one as BTN. So we'll be creating 2 classes into this. BTN is going to be a regular class because we're using this button quite a lot, gradient ones, not gradient ones. So the style is actually same. And then we'll be using a BTN1 for the gradient. So whenever we need the gradient one, we can give 2 classes. Whenever we need a basic one, we can just give the BTN. This one is actually buy now and another one is play now. We can copy this and this can go away and this can say play now. This one will be removing BTN1 because that's the basic, that's how it is. All right, so that's the one part. This is also, this whole thing can be a flex. So yeah, let's try to design it in such a way. And this is the overview portion of it. So I'll just have a div and then we can just have this ID of overview just like this. And we'll be just creating one overview items and then we can copy paste it. So let's keep them assigned because it would be much more easier to have the display flex properties. Yeah, just like we have rows, we have columns as well. So it would be much more easier for me. So I'll just say, hey, this one is overview dash items. Inside this, we'll be having an H4. Feel free to have H3, no problem there. We have to design it, we have to style it. We'll be saying 300 plus, just like this. We'll be having a duplicate of this. And we can say unique and style, just like this. Very basic. All right. So now that we have unique style, we can actually go ahead and just copy paste this. So we need it 3 times. So 2, 3. That is it. I obviously have to change the text, so I'll just do it right now. 200 plus, the last one is 500 plus, and we have 200, 500. This 200 is actually a little bit more, so we'll be using the same gradient text. If you remember, we actually created this gradient text. My bad. This should be here. So the same gradient text can be used here as well. If you notice it closely, this one is actually bigger, but they are exactly same. So we can go ahead and say here this 200 one. Yep, 200 is gradient. So there we go, gradient text. We will reuse the class here. And then we have different text. So unique style is here. We have project finished. Yep, and happy customer. All right. Select this project finished. Yeah. And then what we have is happy bee customer. All right, cool. I think that is it. Let's see how does it look. There we go. Nothing like we planned, obviously. But we'll make it. We'll make it. Not to worry. We'll make it. Let's take it down one by one. So obviously the first part, we have this main header. So we'll be targeting that. So let's go ahead and into the styling. Hey, this is the main header. So let's go ahead and target the main dash header. And you know what we are targeting and why we are targeting. We need them left to right. So yeah, you got that display flex. That's it. One thing and it does the job. Yeah, that's why I love the flex box. Will be content, justify the content. We'll be placing it at flex end. So everything is at the end. So there we go. Nice and easy. Then we'll be having the color as well. So in this one, we are actually using the color white. So let's go with the white. And there we go. So everything is now visible much. Background color? Nope. This is color. So color is the text color. Background color is the color. And we'll be also using the position relative here. Now again, there is a nice tweet about it. CSS position. Maybe let me just try if I can find it. This was a really nice tweet. But after the change in the algorithms by Elon Musk, it's not easy to find those tweets again. So I'll just say CSS position tweet cheat sheet. That was really nice. Again, right now it's not easy to grab. It's not easy. So it used to come around into this one. Let's try in the images. And I don't see the one which I really wanted to show you. It was a really nice diagram. I wish Twitter would have not logged their APIs. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, this is the one that was posted. So in case you don't know how this works, this is a great diagram. So relative, this is how it works. This is where position will go. In the absolute, this is where the original position will go, top 20. So this is really nice. This is the only diagram that you need for fixed, sticky, position, absolute, relative. Once you understand this, pause it, understand it. And that's it. You don't need anything else. I cannot give it to you. You have to search it. But anyways, so we'll keep it like this. Now let's try to handle the things. We'll be handling the left side once, and then we can go ahead and handle the right side as well. The right side, to be honest, is actually easy. We can actually go with the right. Let's go with the right first. Again, totally up to you. I'll just copy this because I'll be reusing this a little. So copy this. And then inside this, we will be going for the right first. So how do you want the right portion to be? We want to give it a width. So width is going to be 90%. All right. The height will be giving it as 100%. So that's the portion of it. Save this. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. We also will give it a z-index. Z-index is something which actually keeps the things at the top. So that's why it is. That's why I'm telling you that, hey, the higher the value in the z-index, the top it is. And we'll also use a mixed blend. So we haven't talked about this one, mixed blend mode. This is a relatively newer CS properties which actually allows you to have the blend modes. And we'll be using something color dodge, which actually changes the color like this. If you go ahead and comment this out, this is what the designer actually gives us. Usually the designer will give you the appropriate image, but sometimes you want a cool property, so you can use a color dodge. I think that looks cool. So we just went with this property. And then we'll be targeting the image as well. So let's go ahead and target inside the header. Then inside we have the right, and inside that we have an image. So this is the one I'm targeting. Not all the images, only the win images. I hope now you can understand that why I was saying so much that, hey, learn targeting. The selector process is so much important. So we'll go with the width, 100% of course, no problem there. And we'll be giving it a height as well. Let's go with a little bit more, 105 VH. Yes, you can give 105% as well. And the margin from the top is going to be a little bit. We tried it out. This is the values that you get from the designers usually. A lot of people don't tell it into the CSS that, hey, how is this all going on? This is all given by the designers. That's how we actually go with this. So, all right, let's check this width. This height is good. This margin top. In case we don't like it, we can come back and just use it again, something like this. So we have main header inside this. We have image. So targeting is nice. We have this mixed blend and everything. All right, now let's go ahead and target one by one the left portion of it. We have left it. So almost like this. Let's go ahead and copy this. We'll start the margin left here. So we'll just say, hey, I'm targeting the left portion of it. So for the left, we are saying that, hey, we want the position to be absolute. Save this. Now it actually keeps it on the top. So just showed you in the tweet as well. Width will be giving it 40% because that's good enough. And the top is going to be, now since it's absolute, we have to give the top as well. So we'll be saying that, hey, top is going to be 100 pixels. And these all values again comes from the designer. We also need to give it a left as well. So left is going to be 10%. We're using majorly the percentage. That's why it's good. And again, we'll be removing all of this. Just let's give it a color. Although we don't need it, but still give the color as white. And that's it. So this is what this is, pretty much there. Now it's time that we first target this big text. So that's what we'll be doing. The big text is actually pretty easy to target. We'll just copy this. It will make our life a little easier. So there we go. Inside this, we have this big text, big dash text. All we have to do is improve the font size. So I'll just say, hey, the font size should be, and again, given to us by the designer is 70 pixel, and the color is obviously white. We don't need to write the color again and again, but just to make sure that other properties doesn't really bother them much. All right. So once we actually go back, let's see what more we have. And there we go. This is looking the big text and all of that. We have this left section. We can actually go ahead and add a little bit more classes as well. So in case you remember, we got this left, and then we have got this overview as well. We can target that. And then we'll be targeting the gradients and text. First, let's go ahead and target this one here, the overview section, because I think that's easier to target now. This will give us a little bit more sense of the design as well. All right, so let's go ahead and say that, hey, this is the left. Inside this, we have an ID of overview. This one is pretty easy. Again, display flex. Half of the job will be done just there. Told you, half of the job is done just right there. All right, let's also say that justify content is going to be flex start. because everything is moved onto the left side of it. So that's okay. And let's give it a little bit of the margin top. That's too much there. So we'll give 40 pixels. Again, designers give it to us. And we'll also use the gap property. So what's the gap between them? Let's try 15 pixels. So gap property gives the gap between the flex items. That's all it is. All right, so already looking pretty good. So as you can see, we are moving step by step. Just don't think about everything. Just think about one thing at a time. All right, so this is good. Now let's go ahead and target the items inside it. So we can just copy this and target the items. So if you remember, this is exactly the overview items. So we'll be targeting all items at once because that's easy. So we'll say overview dash items. Where is the view? It's over. Overview items. I'm enjoying this actually. I hope you are also enjoying it. Again, display effects, half of the job is done. There you go. Told you it's super easy. But you might be wondering, hey, why this all? Because previously it was better. If you don't give the flex item, this is how we want it. Nope. We wanted display flex because flex has this something known as flex direction as well. And you can say that instead of the column, which is default, instead of the row, which is default, I can use column. So there we go. Much easy. But what's the point? Previously we were also giving this. This flexbox actually gives you a lot more of the control as well. I can go ahead and say align items and can say center. And there we go. Now everything is at center. Otherwise you'll be giving text align. That will also work. But yeah, we want to just go with that. Now in this overview item, we have this H4 as well, in case you remember. H4, so we'll be targeting that. Let's go ahead and copy this. Writing the specific details doesn't really overuse your CSS, not overuse, but also doesn't spill your CSS. So let's go with the font weight and we'll be going with the value of 700. So that's what we brought in. And the font size needs to be bigger as well. Font size, we'll be using 20 pixels. That's what our designer used. That's nice. And margin needs to go away, so 0. Padding also needs to go away, so that's also 0. Much better. And also letter spacing. So we'll be saying 3 pixels. Again, these details usually come from the designer that, hey, I want this look specific, so I'm using a kerning, I'm using something like that. Now, one of the class, which is gradient text, we haven't actually designed it. So now it will be used a couple of places. So let's actually take it down. Although we call it as gradient, but it's actually not truly a gradient. Gradient text is actually a whole lot art in itself. So gradient text, all we are doing is using a color which is given to us by a designer. So color, I'll just actually bring the color directly. So I don't bother you much there. And there we go. Paste it. There we go. All right. So as you can see, very close by. We obviously need to change the text a little. Almost there, almost there. Okay, so next up what we are going to target is the paragraphs. All right, so we'll be actually bringing it. So instead of the H4, let's target the paragraph. So inside the paragraph, again, let's give it a margin flush. The reason for saying flush is we use it as 0. That's a common terminology that you'll be using when you'll be reading the articles as well. And we'll be saying font weight as well. So font weight will be using 300 here because our designer used that one. All right, so this is already looking good. Now let's target the header again. Right portion of it. So I think that's already good. The one thing that is going a little bit is this big text. Don't have this one. So let's go ahead and use the big text. This one is having the colors and everything, but here it is a little bit bold, so I think we need to give a little bit more. So big text, you get a font weight. We'll be using the 900 version of it. Yep, that is now almost an exact match. Told you, it's not really difficult. All right, so this is all pretty good. Now, what next? We need to target the buttons as well. So again, you can go ahead and design the buttons at the very end of it. I usually do this very end of it. But in this case, okay, so how should I actually go with the buttons? All right, so let's go ahead and design the buttons as well. The button, let's see. So this is the button. This is usually a div. So let's go ahead and have this one. One other thing you'll notice is we actually have this buttons actually. Let's get them display flex. I'm pretty sure you might have already figured it out. Hey, this button looks like this. Let's give them a display flex. All right. We'll give it at the very bottom. So buttons actually goes here. First of all, the dot buttons, and all the buttons need to have display flex. That's it. All right. So buy now, play now. Yeah, super easy. Let's design the button. First, the basic button. So we'll be having BTN. We have a BTN1 as well, but that's majorly an overwrite, so we are not worried on that. So BTN1, first of all, padding. We can give padding like something like 40 pixel, but that actually comes on all the side. So we don't want it all the side. Also, I want a border so that I can see what's happening to it. So first of all, I'll just give it a border. That's usually what I do. 1 pixel. Even if I have to remove the border, I usually remove it later, but first I know where the things are happening, margin, paddings, and everything. So border, and the designer actually has given me a border color as well, so I'll use his color. So save that. This is how it looks like. I don't want it to look like this, although that's a good button. I'm happy with it, but hey, designer will kill me. So I'll use a 10 pixel that will be top and bottom, and then I'll use 20 pixel that's on the y-axis, so left and right. So this is now looking like a little button. We also need to give a little margin as well. So I'll just say, hey, margin. I'll be using 0 pixel from top and bottom, but on the left and right, we'll be using 10 pixels. So buttons are now standing out. Now, also we need to skew this button, and that's where you see the tilting of it. So that's actually a skew effect. That comes from the transform property, and there's a lot of it. I have actually taught a lot about it. I'll be using the skew, and we'll be skewing only on the x-axis, not on the both axis. And I'll be saying negative 20 degrees. So again, negative 20 degrees. So this is the look that we are going for. In case you want to go with the positive as well, hey, this is maybe the look you want to go. But in this case, we want to go with the negative 20 degrees. So that's what we want. Also, we want a cursor to be pointers. So if something comes up here, that actually is a clickable now. That's it. Let's also give it a background color. There's something new interesting property. So background color, why is it not suggesting me? Because of this. So you can go ahead and use background color, any color like white or something, but there's one more property of it, which is relatively new. You can use the transparent. So now your buttons are transparent. So whatever is inside or below it, it will actually get it. I also want to make sure that the text is always white. So I'll just go ahead and say color is white. So that's basic. All right. So this looks good and our button is good, but in this one, this button is okay, but this one is having some gradient. So you don't have to write the entire button again. You can just overwrite a few properties of this one. So notice here we have this button, but also we have a class of BTN1 and some of the buttons. All you have to do is just have a background color, or we can have just the background. So we'll just go with the background. I do have a color which was given to me, sadly, in the RGB value. I don't like RGB values, but hey, designer has given it to me. I can actually convert it into just by clicking it, and that will be exact same color. So notice here, there we go. So the background is there, but this is actually not going to do the stuff that we really want. The reason why we are giving it a background is it's a default fallback. Sometimes things will not work. The gradient is not such a property which actually always work. The thing that we want to give is a background for a linear gradient, but just because some of the browsers actually don't understand this property, that's why we have given this background as. So in case browser understand this, then we'll be giving it a linear gradient, just like this. And again, the gradient is 45 degrees. What degrees, what colors, what percentage of it, that is usually given to you by the designer. There we go. Our button looks exactly same as it was given to us in the design. Told you. Again, never be shy to ask designer about these things, because how would you know that these things are there or they're not? So again, we have no idea how things actually comes around like that. So always ask designer for these things. All right, so this is pretty nice. And now we can see that, hey, this is looking pretty good. So there we go. We can see that. It's almost looking like the page that we have, except this part, I guess. This is too much of that. We actually need to go back and change some of the styling into this one. So main headers, right, paragraph. Is this the paragraph? No, this is not the paragraph. Yeah, this is the H4 and the overview items. So I think the letter spacing was too much. Save this. Yeah, this is almost like that. But we also don't have this font size, font weight. So let's remove this and let's see. All right, so this one is okay. We can definitely fix it up. Obviously, this needs a little bit more of this, but you get the idea. We are very close by. Obviously, these are the smaller debugging that we need to do. So we'll do that maybe if we'll get time. Otherwise, keep that as a simple exercise for you that, hey, this is something for you and all of that. Now, let me show you something really, really interesting, which is not that interesting, but hey, some people get really excited when they see something like these kinds of bands. And again, this is really, really cool. So it's nothing, it's just a transform and a skew property. Yeah, spoiling the fun, or you can say spoiler alert. All right, so first let's go into the index.html. We'll keep this one as inside this one as well. So the best way is shrink this off, and then you can say this one is actually the band. I don't have any specific name for it. You can say horizontal band at the max, but I don't have any other good name for it. This will be a simple div which is having a class of band. That's it. And inside this band, what do we have? We don't have much. We have just a div which is 3 times replicating and giving us an image. Yeah, just image. That's all. So let's go ahead and have this one. We'll have just one, and then we'll be copying and pasting it. So this one is a div which will be having an image. This image is going to be ./asset, and we have this star1 PNG. Usually I hate spaces in my names, but since the asset was given to you, I think that's *_1, so that's better. If it is not, I hate spaces in my images. Whenever you deploy them in server, they actually just does really horror to you. So just like this, and then we can have something like this, action dash packed. That's what is written there, action packed, mind blending, whatever that is. So we'll be just copying and pasting it 2 times. So that's it. I'll be just copying and pasting this from the notes that, hey, this was mind bending and whatever the collection 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐥𝐤𝐬. The designer seems to be a big fan of the gaming. All right, so how does it looks like? All right, so we can see this is our action. Not really interesting, but we'll make it interesting. That's what we do. All right, so there we go. Let's make it a little bit interesting, that how this band can be really interesting. Let's target the band here directly in the CSS. It's very, very interesting. Band, just like this. Now, the most important property of the band is the width. It always needs to go 100% because it goes from left to right. And then we'll be saying margin. So we'll be going with the margin of auto. So from everywhere, it's auto, just like that. And the most important part is display flex. So display flex. There we go. Now, as soon as you put a display flex, at least they all are in the row, the way how we want it exactly. We also want the justify content. So justify content, and we'll be saying, hey, we want it to be space around so that everything at least looks decent. So this hasn't taken the space. Let me give it a background color as well. So I think that's easy to actually spot it. So we'll be giving it a background, not the background color, just like this background. I do have a color here as well, so I'll be just giving the color. This time, this is a unique color. Not only that, it has values, it actually has the 40 as well, which is your transparent ratio. So in this, you can actually drag and drop this wheel. So that's 40% of it. And we'll be also using a box shadow onto this one. We obviously will be going with the paddings and margin, but we'll be giving with the box shadow as well. Box shadow is something which is usually generated by, there are a lot of tools available in market, which we usually use. So it's a really long property, 0, and then we have 8 pixels. Again, designer gave it to me. I'm not writing it on my own. 32 pixels, and then we have 0. And then we have RGB value, again given to me by designer, that, hey, we don't want to use the black shadows. We want to go with the this kind of a shadow. So there we go. Now it actually leviates it a little bit up. That gives an illusion that it's in this kind of a thing. And then one more property, which is a little bit tricky to understand. It's fairly new. Backdrop, and there's a backdrop filter. So just like this, we have a backdrop filter, and which will be giving it a blur of 4 pixels. So what this is giving is whatever is behind this, it actually gives you the backdrop. So again, go with the MDN. The backdrop filter CSS property lets you apply the graphical effects such as blurring or color shift to the area behind an element. All right, hope you understand it now. Not that difficult. All right, so now that you understand this part, let's go back on here. So this part is okay. Now we'll be giving an align items as well, since we have given that. That's center, that's basic. Let's give it a padding. Not any padding. What we want to give is a padding from different size. So we'll be giving 15 pixels on left and right and 10 pixel on top and bottom. All right, so now it's looking good, a lot more better. We'll be giving it a little bit margin on the bottom side as well. So let's give it a margin bottom, which will be 100 pixels. Save that. Yeah, looks good. All right, there are a couple of more properties, and first of all of them is color. We need to have the white color, not the transparent white. All right, still there is a little bit of the off skewing that is happening. So first let's transform this, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you are waiting for it. So transform, and all we have to do is write a rotate, and then you simply provide the rotate degree, and there is nothing much, -3 degrees, and that's all we did. And there we go. Now you can see it's going all the way left to right, almost looking similar to the landing page that we have. So obviously there is more content to it, but this is how it looks like. We'll be taking care of all the elements which are inside it, all the images inside it, all of that. So don't you worry on that part. So there we go. We have the colors and all these things. So already looking good. Let's try to give it a border as well. And we'll be giving a border. Let's try how much border? 1 pixel, solid, and the color. Again, the same color that we are using here. We'll be going with the border. Copy that, paste that. There we go. Now we have a border looking almost similar to this. There we go. Now the border is in action. The image is a little bit off. We're not worried too much because we haven't yet targeted about the image. Let's actually do this. Dot band, inside this there is an image, img tag. Let's give it a fixed width and height, which is 25 pixels. There we go. And the height as well, which is also going to be 25 pixels. Go back, and yep, this is much better. But again, there is a lot more. Let's also give it a font size here as well. All right, font size and font weight. Font size. Let's try, how much? 30 pixels. I think that's there in the Figma file. Okay, let's try font weight as well. And I'm pretty sure that's 901 that is being used in this one. 900. There we go. Almost same. Yeah, this is exactly same. All right, so there we go. This is the basics. Again, you can use more of this in case you don't like this way. You want exactly like that, so you can use and play around with the justify content and all that. So we are using space around. We can go ahead and say space between, and then obviously this goes all the way. I think I like the previous one, but hey, we cannot do much. Whatever the designer is saying, we can actually just use that. So notice here, it was not really that difficult. At the first look, it was looking like, hey, this is like really too much, but now it's much better. Now, this was only the difficult part of this entire thing. Now, rest of the things, if you go ahead and look around this is all basic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do all of this in your dreams as well. Not dreams, but yeah, with a enough given time, you can actually do this. So this is actually the end of our header section. I hope you've enjoyed that one. So there we go, header part. Now we can go ahead and choose the main part of it. So we'll just say main, and let's comment this out and have a main section just like this. Now inside this main section, we have a whole lot of things which are there. We can go ahead and make a lot of values into it. Again, there can be a lot more portion of it. Let's call this one as choose section, because that's what it is. Choose your favorite game. So let's call it as choose section. So let's go up there, and we're going to call this one as section, just like this. And we'll be having a class to it as well. Let's add a class, choose dash section, just like this. Now, once we are inside this, we'll be having a simple paragraph. And in fact, I do have text with me, so I'll just copy and paste this text. Anyways, you're not much interested in the HTML portion of it. So there we go. Save this, and this is here. Choose your favorite. So just like this, the class is already kicking in. So that's the basic of it. And we'll be closing the paragraph tag as well. So there we go. All right, so this is all good. Now, what we have to do is we have to write description as well. So this is something, again, copy and paste. There is nothing. We won't be focusing too much of our attention in this one. We'll be wrapping this up inside a div. So that's what it is. So this is the section description, and inside this we have the paragraph. Don't worry about these new line breaks and everything. Your editor doesn't care about the line breaks. They keep it everything just same like that. Now after this, what's really important is we are not using any JavaScript, otherwise this could be a really nice carousel. Maybe when we'll be studying some JavaScript or something, we can understand the basics, but right now this is good. So this is what it is, and let me go back onto the code part. Once we have this div, we can actually minimize this div because that's what the section description is. The text is all good and basic. And now we have two portions of it. So let me show you what this is actually from here first. This is the carousel section, then we have the 2-button section. 2-button is something we have already taken care of it, so you shouldn't be worried too much on that part. I'll just copy the HTML part of it and paste it up here. So notice here we have this image carousel section where we have one image, then one image, and then one image. So 3 images in total. And then we have this button, which is having 2 buttons inside it. So really basic, the classes are same, BTN, BTN1 and all of that. So as soon as I save this, you might have noticed already that these are images. The buttons are already kicked in. We just have to keep them in the center. So I think that's not a big deal. All right, so let's go ahead and take it down as well. So let's go there. Code part, there we go. The first that we are going to target is, there we go, all looks good. Choose section. Choose dash section, there we go. What we're going to do, first display flex. As soon as I do this, everything is all great. Flex direction, we'll be choosing the column because that's what we want here. So everything is in the top to bottom, but hey, we want this control. Let's keep it align items. So align items is going to be in the center. That's it. There we go. Keeping everything onto the align items. So center-ish. All right. So on top of this, let's keep the color as white. So we'll be going with the color white. There we go. Already looking nice. So easy to do. Let's flush out the margin with the 0 and flush out the padding with 0 as well. And the text align center, although there is no requirement of it, but I'll still do it. So there we go. Everything is now center aligned. Now we can choose the title. So if I go back up here, notice here there is this choose section title. So we can just copy this, go back up here and choose the title. Again, this is a dot because it's a class. And there we go. Nice and easy. Now this title doesn't need too much. We'll be first adding the font size. And it's usually 40 pixels. Yeah, it is 40 pixels. I checked it up. I'm actually constantly checking it in the Figma designs as well. So there we go. Nice and easy. Font size. This is good. And let's add a weight to it. And we're using a 901 in this one. So there we go. Already looking good. Exactly same as what we have here. Again. Okay, now next up is the description portion of it. So we can copy this. So section description gradient is already kicking in, so I'm not worried on that part. Let's go back up here. Okay, what do you want in this one? First, let's restrict the width. I'll just keep it 500 pixels. Feel free to just lower it down as well. Font size is 18 pixels. And we have font weight as well, which is in this case is just 100 somehow. So there we go. And obviously, if you need something more of the margins or paddings and all of that, we can just go ahead and do all of that as well. But we'll just directly go into this one because there is no point of just bringing everything. You understand the basic. First, let's go in the image carousel. Copy that. So we'll be saying that, hey, I'm targeting the image carousel, but I'll also, just for the safety purpose, I'll say that, hey, inside this section, choose section, I'm actually using this. So I'll be saying that, hey, inside the choose section, I'm using the image carousel. So there we go. There's a class like that. Again, super easy. First, go with the display flex. As soon as you do this, half of the job is done, just like always. Keep the width all the way in so that it's easier for you. So width, we are going to go ahead and say 100%. As soon as you do this, now the width is 100%. Now we have to say that, hey, how the justify content should work. Justify content. This one will be going with the space between. And that's exactly what we want. We need to shrink down the image. I agree on that part. And then we'll be saying align items, center, and margin bottom, and that we are using of 50 pixels. And there we go, already looking exactly the way we want it to be. Again, this is all the magic of the images, not mine. So there we go, already looking good. Now we need to actually shrink down the images a little bit, not much, but yeah, we'll just go with that. So we'll say, hey, inside this image carousel, we have this center. We don't have this class. So there we go, the center image, which needs to be a little bit big. So copy that. And we'll be saying center image just like this. Now the center image will have a fixed width, which designer usually gives to you, 400 pixels, and we'll be having a height, which is also 400 pixels. And I think that is it. This one is actually 600. So this one is much bigger. Oh, the images are actually, this one is lower, this one is, so we need to fix up the images as well. So we'll just go ahead and make a duplicate of this one, and we'll say that, hey, we are targeting now all the images. So all the images should be 400 pixels and the height should be just the 250, so that we make this one as shorter. So there we go. Now these images are shorter. This one is big. This view all in play now. We don't have to even touch it. This is already looking good. Just the display flex, that does half of the magic. All right. So this is what we have. Let's see what else we have. So we have this discover section as well. And then this is the really basic. All right. So welcome back again after a small break. And again, the glass is full. I'll be sipping up some water. You need it. So anyways, we'll be building a couple of more sections so that it gives you more confidence. But again, just watching the videos, falling in the tutorial hell is not going to go anything with that. You're getting confidence, that's great, but try to modify them a little bit, then try to build these sections without me watching as well. Take the entire HTML, take the entire images, but try to actually get a screenshot of it and try to do that. I'll build a couple of more sections for you, but again, rest you have to complete as we go further. So let's go back up here onto the code part. So there we go. So into the code part, what we have is, this looks good. So let's go into the HTML part. So this is the main section. Let's close this. This is a choose a section. After that, we have this discover section as well. So let's go ahead, and this is again a part of this one. So we'll just go ahead and say discover section just like this, and we'll be commenting it out. Now inside this section, first we have this section just like this. This section will have a class of discover section. No surprises there. Discover section, and obviously as we can see in the discover section, there is a photo at the left, then there is a content on the right side, so nothing much. And let's go ahead and create a card inside it. So we'll say div that will have a dot of discover dash card, and once we have the discover card, inside this we will have an image just like this, and we'll be going with the dot slash assets, and the one we are using is a VR girl image. That's it. Let's also keep an alt tag VR girl. There we go. So this is the basics of it. On the right side, I'll just actually bring the card details directly because we don't want to type this much. So there we go. The card has two portions. The first portion we actually wrote as the image. This one we are directly bringing up from the HTML file. So there we go. How does this look? And compared to that, it's okay. Not bad. We know that the moment we'll be saying display flex, this will be a lot being done. So yeah, we are quite confident that we can do it now. All right, so let's go back into the CSS portion of it, and there we go. All right, so let's start with the discover section. Discover section, there we go. The discover section, let's first restrict the width. We don't want to keep it all the way from left to right. So 70% is what we decided. The margin we need to keep it. So margin is going to be 100 pixels from top and bottom, and then auto from left and right. Save this, and there we go. Nice and easy, looking good. And that's it. Now inside this, if you remember, there is a discover card, and everything is actually a part of this card. So there's a discover section, and then we have discover card, and I think I have wrongly pasted the stuff because everything was supposed to be a card here. So yeah, we need to actually cut this out till here, cut this out, and the image is here, and another portion is this whole text. so that we can actually just target the div discover card just like that. I'll copy this one as well and we'll target it. So this is how it looks like. Now you know, all that's remaining is just give the display flex, half of the job will be done. So discover card, display flex, there we go, and told you half of the job is all done. Now we have to just first settle down the image and then most of it. And again, we can settle up a lot of things here. Justify content, we can just say that flex start. So there we go. A lot of things are done already. And then align item is going to be center so that it brings everything to the center on top to bottom axis. Justify content, main axis, align item, top to bottom axis. This also looks like a crash course of a flexbox. All right. Color needs to be white. So there we go. Mostly everything is visible. Nice and easy. Let's give it a border as well. So we'll be saying that, hey, the border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and we'll be going the same color that actually we used. So we'll be saying, yeah, where is the color? Yeah, here it is. Don't want to bring it from the, again, going into Figma is no fun. So there we go. Okay, all right. So this is look exactly same. Oh, this one is having a little bit corner radius. So no problem. We can give the corner radius. We know how to do it. This is actually border radius, not corner radius. And we'll be giving it of, oh, there's a designer that gives us, so 7 pixels. So exactly same as what we have. All right, now we have to give it a little bit of a background and all of that, back filter, blur radius. So now it's much more easier to actually see the backdrop filter. So we'll be saying backdrop filter. And now if I just choose the blur of how much, 4 pixels, it would be much more easier. So now I need to get a color as well to actually show you that, yeah, this actually exists. So we'll be saying background, and let me get you a color. And it's again a shade of blue. Save that. Yeah, now you can see the blur is there. If I go ahead and increase it to a little bit, you'll probably see the exaggerated version. Or probably not. All right, so we have this background colors as well going in, nice and easy. All right, we do have a box shadow as well. I'll just directly copy and paste the box shadow because it's a long list. But hey, this is a small shadow that comes up, hardly visible, but it's there. All right. So this is the basics that we have done. Now we have to first take down this image because notice here, the image is looking like this. We need to actually center this image a little bit. All right, the way how we are going to take down this image is first, let's go ahead and get this card. And inside this, there is an image. Now, one really great thing is we can give it a margin top and we can give it a -70 pixels. So margin in positive number keeps it bottom. But if I go ahead and give it a -70 pixels, there we go, told you, super easy. There is nothing complex about it. Let's also restrict the width as well. And we'll give it a 50% of it. There we go. Yeah, much better. And align self as well. So usually we have been talking about so far align items and justify content. They are parent level property on Flexbox. Align self is actually a element level or the child level property of the Flexbox. So we'll say flex start. It actually moves to the start. There we go. Told you it's really simple. If you take it down one by one, there is almost no difference to it. So there you go, really nice and easy. So almost no. Obviously the text is a little different, but you get the idea. Let's go ahead and take down the big text first. So if you remember, yeah, the same classes we are using, big text, gradient text, yeah, all of that. Let's actually copy this since we are here. Copy this, and then we can go ahead and get the big text just like this. Super simple, there's nothing. And actually I'll have one more class here, which is discover card details. Copy that just to make sure I can go ahead and target this only, but I'll just be sure that I'm targeting the correct class only. And there we go. And in this one, what we're going to do is just change the font size first, which is 50 pixels in this case. We also need to give a font weight as well. That is 901. And we also flush down the margin. Save that, told you, exactly same. because designer gave it. It's not like I'm magical or I know what to face or I know exactly 50 pixels. Nothing like that. It all comes from Figma. Designers it's a job of the designers. And we have this play now button as well. This is a little bit different. What different? It's almost like same. We could have used the same property, but okay, we can transform this as well. No problem. Okay. We have this discover card details button. And there we go. Discover card details button. Nothing too much. The width is going to be a little bit different. This time we'll be using fit content, which automatically fits that whatever the content that we are using. We need to use a little bit of the border first, otherwise we'll not know what we are doing. 1 pixel solid, and there is a gray color. All right, so it's fitting the content. Let's give it a padding as well, otherwise not looking good. And padding, and we need a 10 pixel from left and right, so less on 10 pixel on top and bottom, so first value is top and bottom, and on left and right we have 20 pixels. So there we go, looking good. Let's skew it. So again, you know how to do it. Transform, which can actually skew it on the x-axis, and we're using a little bit of -20 degrees. All right. Why is it not working? Oh, I said scale X, not scale X. It's skew X. Save that, and there we go. Told you, not even a little bit different. So I think this card that we have, or this section here, there's nothing in this section. This section is very, very boring, and I think you can also grab this. So I'll actually go ahead and have the card section first here, so we can actually play around with this. I'll play a little bit more. So this section is now the demo card section. So we'll say demo card section, and we'll just go like that. So this one is interesting because it's very boring. First of all, we know the section, how it's going to work. So this one is demo card section. All right. So inside this, first we have this div, which is buttons, just like this. I'm not going to be wasting your time with writing every single button manually. We'll just copy and paste this one. Since we have already these classes button and button 1, I don't think so we have to do anything. And we just need to push them tiny bit, but I think there's nothing in here. We can actually just target the one demo card section itself, and let's actually save this as demo cards section because there will be a lot of cards. And that will actually shrink all of this. We'll just say display flex and align items and all of that. So should be super easy. And no, don't want to copy that. I actually wanted to copy this one here. Demo card section. Copy that, place it up here, place there. So all I have to do is reduce the width to 70%. And I know I have to say margin of 20 pixel and auto. Now, important thing, display flex. As soon as you do this, didn't actually implement it, display flex. Half of the job is all done. The shrinking and all of that is happening via the width. And to bring it on the center, all we can do is align items to the center. And there we go. Now, let's go ahead and for all of this, we'll be changing the flex direction as well. Flex direction, and we'll be changing it as column. The reason why I'm thinking for this is because I'm not thinking about these buttons. They will remain as it is, no problem there. They are not, the reason why this actually didn't implement it on them is simply because they are not the block level element. I'm thinking about the card. So that's why the column is there. So that's what it is. All right. Okay, so margin, display flex, flex direction. Let's also give align item center, which we have given, and the color to be white, so that all the text color goes as white. There we go. Okay, we do have the cards and whatnot, all of these details. Okay, so looks good, already looking good. And let's see what more we have. We can actually have these buttons as well. These buttons are bothering me a little bit. All right, so all we have to say is all these buttons, you get display flex and they automatically will be there. So I think that's all. and should be all good. Let's try this. Did we have the button something like this in the past as well? I think I remember I did that. Yeah, this is the buttons which we have the display flex. Let's save this. Let's see why this is not moving. So let me check that why this is not moving. All right, so after debugging, thing actually was font display. It was not font display. It's actually flex direction that we wanted to have. So flex direction, as soon as I make it as column, and that's it. It fixes up this portion up here. So there we go. We definitely can work and keep on working on the cards and whatnot and all these details as well. But I think it would be great if you give it a try before me that, hey, now you have built this much. This is already looking good. Why don't you go ahead and give it a try and probably post down link in the comment section that, hey, here is my GitHub repo. I tried and completed that. Go ahead and take a screenshot of these cards that you want to design. This should look like that. Almost we have designed the buttons. It's nothing. It's just a flex and all of that will work. So I think that's a great start, and we have given you a great idea about the CSS crash course that we have. I hope you have enjoyed that, and please do support us, and we'll be creating more such courses for you. So all right, and I'll surely catch you up in next another section as well. I can keep on coding here, writing it, but it's not adding more value to you. So just try it before me and see, let me know in the comment section how is it going on. And that's it for this crash course, and thank you so much. Hey there everyone, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐥𝐿 here. Welcome to PW Skills again. So last time when I was recording this video in the continuous section, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't realize it. Just because you're watching in one go doesn't mean that it's being recorded in the one go as well. So in this video, I'll walk you through continue further. I'm pretty sure you have already tried and have attempted to do this, but I thought let me help you in building all of that. Although the part we are going to do here is much more similar, much more easier than what we have achieved so far. It's just a card. It doesn't take that much of the time. But still, I'll walk you through with that. So we're going to be doing that part as well. Now, let me go ahead and walk you through with the card scenario, how the cards are there. So far, we have built this much. So we're pretty happy with what we have built. It's actually really nice. So I'm pretty impressed that we have built and we have come so far. Now, if you look at the original landing page, after this portion here, we have these cards. So we have these 6 cards. Obviously, they actually borrow the designs from the cards. So cards are usually the exactly same. So we'll be just building one card and then we'll be replicating it. That's how we'll be doing it. So let me go ahead and move on to the code part of it. Where is my code part? There we go. Here is my code part. So we'll be designing this demo cards here, and we'll be keeping everything inside this demo card section because that is the structure we are following. We'll be keeping everything in here. Now in this, we have to first create a container which will contain all the card, and then an individual card container that will contain the card elements like that. So let's go ahead and have a div which will have demo cards. We'll use a dash cards. All right, so this will be my bigger card container. Inside this, a number of other cards will be there. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and have a div which will be having a simple demo dash card, not cards, because it's a single individual entity that we are bringing in. There will be 3 phases of it. So as you can see, if I go ahead and walk you through with that, the first one is the image phase or the image section of the card. Then we have this text section. It also has an image, but that's another way. This is the second section of it, and the third section we'll keep it as button. So that's how we'll be dealing up with that. I think we can keep this one as a separate entity as well. So one entity as an image, one entity of this title, and then one entity for all of this and one entity for this. So we'll keep it like that. So it's much more easier that way. So let's go back up here. So the first thing is obviously the image. So I know exactly which image we'll be using. So we need to go into /assets. And we'll be having these demo images. So one by one, we'll be using all of them. So this is my demo image. So we'll be calling this one as, let's just say game avatar or avatar, however you say that. In what country you belong, that depends on that. We'll be having an H5, which says just like something like core philosophy, something like that. So core philosophies, we could have copied this. So just copy and paste this one. That is actually better. So that's a second section of it. The third section is actually a profile detail. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll be having a div, which will be said as demo dash prof dash details. All right, we'll come back onto this in a minute. And last part is actually the button. So let's go ahead and have a simple button, which will be having a class of demo dash game dash btn, although we could have used just the button, but hey, let's just keep it. And we'll be saying live demo, or we can use all caps, demo, if I can write that. Come on. Okay. Oh man. There we go. So we have this one. So nice and easy. There is nothing too much in that. Now in the second portion of it, we know that there is an image and then there is a text, this text. So this image could be in its own text. So we can keep it as flex. The image will be on the left side. As soon as we do the flex, the text will be on right side. And these two, Cody Fisher and the Walt Disney Company, they could be in its own div so that we can actually have the default, which is the flex of column. So no, not that. That's not default. Flex of top and bottom. So we'll be saying flex direction of column. So something like that. So let's go inside this details. And the first thing is image. So we'll be just having an image. The image that we'll be using is assets, and we have this prof pic 1. So just like that. And after this, we'll be having a div to keep all the text as a container. So we'll be having this div. We'll be having an h5, which will borrow some text from here. So Cody Fisher is good. We'll keep it Cody Fisher for all of them. If you want to change, you can go ahead and change it. And we'll be having a paragraph as well, which will borrow some text from here. So let's just go ahead and copy this. Feel free to add your own text, though that's not a big deal. So there we go. We have all the details of the card. So now this card is absolutely ready. All we have to do is now make copies of it. So we have 6 cards and this is one card of it. So we can just select all of this. So this is 1 and I can go ahead and say this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Copy paste shortcut. The option shortcut is option or the alt key, shift and the down arrow key. That actually is a basic VS Code. This is not a VS Code tutorial class. So let's go ahead and see how does that look. So we can see these are our cards. Let's count them. Hopefully we can. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 cards. So they're looking nice. Now it's time that we actually containerize them and talk about the CSS one by one. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. We can have these demo cards. First, we have to just have this demo card section. This is already good. We have flex direction as column, align item as center, displays flex, and that's it. Now let's go ahead and target this demo cards so that we can actually bring them up easily. So let's have this demo cards just like this. What is the first thing we have to do? We have to say display flex. So display flex, that's it. As soon as I do display flex, it should do a lot of job. Probably that's not running. So let me just go ahead and get back and hit a refresh. And let me try to just run this again. Open with the live server, fresh one. All right, so display flex is there. Then what I want to do is not only that, we have display flex. Let's try to justify content as well. So justify content is going to be center and we want to wrap this up. So there is a property known as flex wrap and we'll be saying, hey, just go ahead and do a wrapping. As soon as I do this, why is it not impacting the demo cards? It should be. There seems like an issue in this one. All right, let's just check it out. Let's debug this. We have this demo card section as well, which has the width 70%, a margin of 20 pixel, display flex. We have the flex direction as well. Let's keep it above. Flex direction, we have a line item, we have color. Looks okay. Let's keep on working with this so that we can see that what is happening. This should be changing. Let's try to target the demo card first and then see what all details we need to flush or we need to improve this one. So we'll be having this demo dash card. And again, this is a singular unit. The first is I want to have a fixed width to it. Maybe that is the issue. So 300 pixel is the one. And yep, now it's better. At least that is impacting. Again, everything should be display flex. So display flex, there we go. After this, we'll be having a flex direction of column because everything inside the card, I want them top to bottom approach. We'll also have gap as well. So the gap will be giving a property of 15 pixels so that each element inside the flex should have some gap around them. So 15 pixel, all of them are getting it. So this is how what we have right now. And there we go. Now, as soon as I give it a width, the live demo is also going all the way up. So that's nice. Flex direction is column. Let's also align item to the center. Align items, center, there we go. Let's also give it a padding as well. So let's just have a padding of 10 pixels and 15 pixels. So left and right and top and bottom. And let's give them a border radius. So border radius. And let's try, we actually tried it. 7 pixels already, the borders are looking nice. This is everything is the center. We'll be definitely aligning them. So that's one part of it. All right. What else we can do? Let's try a little bit more. Let me go back up here. And there we go. So we have this border radius. Let's try a little border as well. And the border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and the color. So we do have a color here from the Figma designs. There we go. Let's place it. So we have this one. Let's also give it a background as well. So this is background, and we'll be again using a color from the Figma designs. Let's use this one. And also we have a box shadow. So again, box shadows is something which I love to copy always from the Figma design. This is so good of a property. And we'll also be giving a background filter as well to it. So backdrop filter, there we go. And we'll be using again the same. We have been using blur, and the blur will be 4 pixel. All right, so this is looking nice. Obviously we have to target the image, but already this is looking decent. We need to fix a little bit on the demo card section. So just give me a second. Let me try to see that why we need a debugging on this. All right, found the issue, and I don't really like to edit out these issues because it actually helps you to understand that where the problem was. So I tried a little bit of the more CSS, how it works, and it was not really getting it through. So notice here it's still not working. Then I checked out my HTML as well, that why is it not working? Turns out I was actually unintentionally copy pasting all the demo cards. What I should be doing actually is instead of doing this, we should be actually copying pasting the inner details of it. So that's really bad. I have actually copied and pasted the containers, which shouldn't be done. So that is why this is creating all these issues. So we'll just select everything and we'll delete this again. And all we want to copy is not the demo cards. Actually, we want to copy this demo card, not the S1. So we'll just copy this one, and then we can actually paste this. And as soon as I do this, now the cards are actually the way how I want it to be. So again, that's nice. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the container was entirely getting copy pasted. So that is not I want. Yes, of course, there is still the issue in the images, but at least rest of the things are looking decent. So that's exactly what we want. Next, obviously, we'll be targeting this image. So that will actually help us a lot. All we do is just have this image solid height and width. I think that's it. That's all what we have to do. Let's go back onto the VS Code. Let's try this. And these kinds of small debugging you will also be doing. There's nothing perfect. Development doesn't work on the perfect. So we have this, where we have, let's go into HTML and let's see. So we have these details and all of that. Let me see. Where is the first card? Here is the first card. So the first thing is we want to have this demo card, and inside this there is an image. So let's go ahead and target this image directly. Copy that, go back into the CSS, and we'll be having .demo card, and inside this we have this image. So we can target this. All we have to do is say, hey, your width is going to be 100%. And that's it. It does the job. Now it's contained inside the container. That's nice. Let's also restrict this image here, which is also targetable easily. So we have this image. So demo prof details. Inside this, there is an image. So let's copy this, go back onto the CSS and say, hey, this is also having an image. Let's hard code the values here. So the width that we have is actually 40 pixel each, like height and width both. Height is 40 pixels. We don't have to round the corners here because the image is automatically given to us by designer like that. So we don't have to worry on that part. So that's already nice. Okay, so now next up is we'll be actually changing this h5 a little. So we have this .demo card, and inside this we have the h5. All we have to do is flush out the margin and align self to the start. Start, do we have a start? Self start, yeah, self start. And let's save this. Yep, that's exactly where we want it. Just need a little bit bigger size of it. So for that, let's change the font size. Font size, and let's make it 20 pixels. Then you can make it bold and stuff. So this is exactly what I want. So here, yeah, I actually debugged the original one and checked the look and all of that. So yeah, I did that. Okay, so this is all good. Now, next step is what we have to do is check out this one. So we actually created a container, which is demo profile details. Okay, so inside this demo card, we have demo profile details. Copy that, go back into the CSS. Inside the demo. The reason why I'm doing it this way, because maybe later on you want to have more of this kind of classes. So we are very sure that we are targeting specifically exact what we want. We are increasing the specificity of it. Display flex, as soon as you do this should do the half of the job. So this is now in order. Let's override the gap as well. So we'll be overwriting the gap of 7 pixel. Let's try. Not really. And let's also align it. So align, come on, align self to the start, self start. And there we go. Nice and easy. Now, next thing that we have to do is let's check out the demo cards H5 and P. So let's go ahead and flush out the margin for them as well. So 2 classes we'll be targeting. So let me just go ahead and directly have this one. So let's go ahead and have the flush of this. And there we go. Nice and easy. So we have flushed out just the margin for both the H5 as well as the P. So as soon as we do the margin, otherwise when you see this, the margin is not flushed out, then it's injecting too much of the margin. Sometimes when you just flush out the margin, it does the job. Okay, now what we have is the demo game button. So if you remember, this is the demo game button. Although we could have used the designing, which we have already done, but we can do this again. No problem at all. It's not a big deal. This is an easy button. All right. First of all, the cursor is going to be pointer. So cursor pointer. And then we'll add a padding of 10 pixels and 0. All right, we'll be getting a width as well. We will go with the 90% of it. This will do half of the job. So automatically, this one is actually looking much better. But let's just say text align, although we don't need to, but still I'll just say the text align is center, although this is already in the center because of the align items property of the flex. So we don't have to worry on that much, but still. Let's transform and skew this one as well. So we'll say transform, and for this we'll be skewing it on the x-axis. Which is -20 degrees. This always does our job. Let's see the main one. So this is almost looking like this. So already. Now we have to do is provide a border to it. Border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and the color we have from the Figma files. Paste this, and there we go. Not really that visible, but yes, I can see the border is there. Nice and easy. Less visible, but it is there. Let's also get a background color and the linear background. I usually love to grab them from the Figma files. You can do that. Figma hands-off actually allows you, but in case you don't like that, you can just go ahead and write this one as well. So there we go. The text needs to be white. So let's go ahead and get the colors. Color is going to be all white. There we go. Almost like that. Yeah, almost same. No big difference. Only the text part. Yeah. So this is all good. All right. We can change a little bit of the margin as well, but I don't think so there's a need of it. So this one is all looking good. So I told you the cards are not really big deal, especially if you know your flexbox and stuff. It's just a matter of fact so that you will be able to do it. Now, the next thing that we have is actually the footer, which is again something I'm expecting that you will be able to do it. So let's go back. This is also our designs. No, this is not. So this is the footer section of it. I'll show you that how you can build a footer container first, and rest of the things are easy. You can actually build that. So let's go into the index.html and show you that footer. What we're going to do is let's actually close this section as well. Let's close this. So this is a demo card section, and now we are into the footer section. So let's go ahead, comment it out. Oops, accidentally moved to the top. All right, what do we want in the footer section? The first we want is the footer container. So if I go ahead and say div.footer dash container, you can go ahead and add instead of div, just get a footer. So that is also good. Now, once you have this footer container, now the majority of the work will be done inside the container itself. After this, it's just property. So nothing, no big deal there. Now, this footer container, most important properties is, first of all, we'll be using flex. So display flex should be there. And the flex direction is going to be the column. So flex direction will be keeping everything inside the columns as well. And then let's add a little bit of the colors and paddings and position and all of that. Right now, you won't be able to see the content itself. Let me actually grab the content so that it makes your life easier. In case the code files, you access the code files, you actually go ahead and have everything so that we can focus just on the styling part of it. So I'll just actually grab it from my helping files, code files. So there we go. Now, if I save this, notice here, everything is here and all the things are there. All you have to do is now target each one of them and arrange them. For example, in this footer, we have this about and links section. So this is the one part of it. Then we have this brand section. That's another div. And then we have this copyrights and stuff. So each one of them is individually identifiable. You don't have to worry too much on that. And you can just go ahead. Let's try to do some minimalistic CSS on that one as well. Let's try to have a gap. We'll be using a big gap of 40 pixels. And then everything needs to be white. So we'll be using a color of white. And then let's add a padding as well. From all the side, we want to add padding. So we'll be saying 100 pixels of padding. And then you can mix and match 10% from this side. It moves from the top and circles out back to the top. So that's how it's being designed, all the four side. And 10%, just like that. So as soon as you do this, there we go. It's looking already good. I think this footer is also looking good already. And then we can go ahead and make the position as relative as well. So pos relative. All right, looking good. Now, the next thing we can target is, let's see what else we have. So we have a lot of things. So inside this footer, we have a lot of images as well. So inside the footer, if there is any image, we can target that and make its width and height and all of that. Let's try that. We don't need to go this much. We can actually go ahead and target this directly. Yeah, a lot of things. Don't worry, I'll still leave a lot of things for your assignment as well. And let me target something different here so that this actually gets you as an assignment. Let's target these brands. Okay, so there are a lot of things and I'll show you that how easy it is actually to target the brands. So I'll just say footer container. Inside this, there is a brand. So let's go up here and we'll be having this dot footer container. And then inside this, we have dot brands, just like that. And super easy to deal with them. First of all, display flex. That's it. Half of the job is done. Told you. Half of the job is done. Then all you have to do is add gaps. That's it. How much gap? Maybe 50 pixels. Yeah, that's it. Notice here how easy it is. It looks very difficult, but how easy it is. If you don't like the image height and width and all of that, so go ahead and change it. Let's actually change this. So inside this, we want images to be a little shorter or shrinked one. And we'll be saying inside this, there is an image whose height is going to be 20 pixels because that's what it is in the design. There we go. So I'm telling you, this is super easy to work with this. Anything you can work with this, the companies and all of this, about links, whatnot. Everything is easily doable. All you have to do is just work on with this. Super easy. So I think I'll just keep this because there's a little bit of the flex box involved in this one. So go ahead and try it. Try it before me. The company, this text, this images, everything needs to be in this way. How you can do this. Try this out. Try this out. So go ahead, try it before me, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do this. I'm really enjoying this way of learning the things via learning, exploring this together, and project is the only way how you learn with the CSS part of it. So that's it for this video. Let's catch up in another such video. Hey there everyone, Hitesh here and welcome to another video. I thought I'll give the rest of the things to you as an assignment, but then I realized one thing we actually missed it. It was very obvious, but we missed it. In the original design, we have this image in the background as well, but we just went with the classic original one with the background. So we need to modify this a little bit, not too much, but still we need some modification in it. So let's go ahead and do this. So we'll have this footer container as it is, but in order to have this background image, we need a wrapper as well, where we can actually put the image in the background itself. So let's go ahead and cut this out. This will not affect any of our classes. That's the good thing. We have specified an higher specificity level of the selectors. That's the good thing. So let's just go ahead and wrap this inside another div. Instead of the div, we'll get a footer, and inside this we'll paste it. So whatever we have copied, we'll just keep it as it is. Now, apart from this, we just need an image. So we'll just keep this image just like this. And the image that we are using is inside the assets, and we have this footer bg.png, and that's a footer background. So once I save this, if I go back now onto the VS Code, so this is how the image looks like. Obviously, we have to position it a tiny bit better, nothing too much. We have to position it absolute, and then we can give it a width and height. So that's all we'll be doing. And obviously, we have to manipulate the Z index of it, but I think that's doable. So let's go up here, just above here, footers. So we have this footer, and inside this footer, we have this image. All we have to do is first we have to position it absolute. So position absolute. As soon as I do this, now it's position absoluted, not in the relative way. So that actually does half of our job. Let's also change the width to 100% so that it acquires all of its available space. And now it's doing half of the job. It's already looking good. We don't have to, but we have to reduce the height as well. Let's go ahead and reduce the height. We'll be getting around 400 pixels because that's in the design. And yeah. And apart from this, let's also give it a Z index. We don't need to, but just for the surety that it always remains at the back. So we'll be giving it a Z index as well. All right, so that's already looking good and looking pretty nice. Now, moving on, if you see in here, we can actually have a target on this logo with name as well. So this logo is also there. Let's target that. Since we are already here, let's try this out. Okay, let's have this dot logo with name. That's the logo, and we need to give a specific width and height to it. That's all, 150 pixels. Again, you will never know that what the height and the width is because you don't have the Figma files. I do have my Figma files in my reference, so always just look into them. Hovering over that, that's it. That's all you have to do. And again, this is height. And that's 40 pixels. All right, so this is the logo that we are targeting. And after this, we can just go ahead and grab it. So dealing up with these things, it's super easy. For example, if I go ahead and target this footer container and try to actually target this about links. So let's go ahead and target this. This will do half our job. So about links, and we are also need to be in footer container. So just like that. And the moment I do display flex, this will do half of the job. Told you. The moment I give the display, it will do half of the job. So that's all it is. But also let's try to have the space in between them. So display flex is good, but justify content is going to be having the space between. So save that. Yep, we need to now target this this thing. So let me just see, where is this? So this is a paragraph we need to target. This paragraph is actually going way beyond than it should be. So either restrict the container that it is having, or you can just restrict this. So right now we are inside this first div, so we can just target that. That's not really a big issue. Let's actually restrict the div. There are a couple of ways you can target directly the paragraph, but I think we'll just target the div. All right. So go back up here and let's target the div and provide a restrictive width to it. So automatically your paragraph will wrap around to it. And inside this, there is a div. Let's do a restriction on width. And the width that we'll be using is 22%. Again, getting from the Figma. So there we go. Half of the job is done. Again, if you cannot convert this thing into this, then there was no point of watching the video. So this is all it is. All right, so looking good. Already looking good. So let's go ahead and target the next thing. So next up, what do we have here? We have a couple of UIs and UL, a lot of UIs and UL. So we can target just it once and then it will do most of the job. So let's go back into this and we can have a duplicate of this. And this time we are targeting just the ULs. And inside the UL, first thing is display flex. That's it. Told you, half of the job is all done just with this. Just for the surety, although that's not needed, but flex direction column because that's not needed already. So that's already good. And then let's also add a gap that will be 22 pixel. Again, coming from the design. Padding, let's flush it down. So padding 0. Going back, padding 0. And the list style is none. And why is it not impacting? List style is none. Save this. Do we need a refresh? No, it's still not targeting. And, oh, my bad. We want to target all the ULs. There we go. Now we have got this one. All right, so looking already good. Now we can just reduce the spacings or something like that. Not a big deal. We can also improve the H4s that we have. So all the H4 can also be targeted inside the container, and we can have a bigger font size for them. Let's see that. So we have a lot of H4s that we are using here. So we have to target that. Pretty easy. All we have to do is this footer container. They have an H4. And all we have to do is flush out the margins into them. This will do the job. Yep. And then we can have a font size as well. And font size will be how much? 20 pixels in the designs. Again, cheating from the design. And the font weight as well, we'll be using 701. All right, so looking good. Now there is one thing still remaining. No, it's already looking good, but I'm not liking this gap too much. So try to flesh out the list items designs as well. And rest of the things are automatically aligned, so nothing too much of a big deal. Yeah, we can go ahead and change the images as well. I haven't changed it, but you can go ahead and change it. You get the idea? The whole idea is now you take this design and make it forward, probably add a navigation bar here, or maybe add more pages. This is just a home page. Add the product page, something similar to that. Add an app page, feature page, something like that. Now you have a lot of designs, so try to make 2 or 3 pages. And again, eventually, as you will be learning, struggling, as you saw in this video also, we struggled a little bit. We actually debugged it a little bit, although we were having design. And a lot of things which you are scared of actually is given to you by the design files as well. That is Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, whatever it is. You get most of the things like the image sizes, the navigation bar size. It's not a tweak like I do the 40 pixels, let's try 50 pixel. Usually that comes from the designer itself. So that's how it is easily being done. So all right, this marks as an end of this one project that we have done, and a lot of video, really long video. I hope you have enjoyed this. In case you have enjoyed this, do let me know, and hope you have enjoyed this crash course. Not a crash course, it's a long one, and this project-based approach. All the files will be available to you in the description section. If in case you have anything, just let us know in the comment section, and we'll surely catch you up in the next video.